Chapter 45-47. Yiqing Luo turned around and walked towards Qiao Jin and Huang Fusheng's direction. She put her hands behind her back and walked slowly. The expression on his face was extremely calm. "Let's go," she spoke to the two. Qiao Jin took a look at Ren Jianying, who had fallen onto the ground, and looked at Yiqing Luo. "Just like this. What else do you intend to do?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him. "Kill Ren Jianying?" Qiao Jin shrugged his shoulders. "You can decide. I don't care." Yiqing Luo walked straight ahead as she said, "Let Ren Jianying pass the message. An ambitious person like her, over at the secluded palace, will die sooner or later. Yushi Palace wouldn't let anyone with ulterior motives exist. Ren Jianying was obviously not a woman who would submit willingly. Now the two sides were cooperating happily. That was because both sides could make use of each other. Ren Jianying, keeping him by her side was like keeping a ticking time bomb. The people from the Palace of Darkness would naturally not let Ren Jianying go. There was no need for her to kill Ren Jianying. After all, she was also Ren Jiaming's sister. After all, Ren Jiaming had taken care of old man Song's body for such a long time. Even if he didn't want to give face to the monk, he still had to give face to the Buddha. So, he would give Ren Jianying's life to the Palace of Darkness. Huang Fusheng lowered his eyes in guilt. "I'm sorry. I acted on my own and made you come all the way here. I understand." Yiqing Luo waved her hand. "Those who are able to cooperate with the Palace of Darkness are jackals of the same tribe. The thing that the Palace of Darkness likes to play with the most is the human heart. The only person who can make you leave the Gu residence despite knowing that the situation is dangerous is Old Master Huangfu. In the entire Huangfu clan, these two cousins only cared about Huangfu Jintian the most. Something that could elicit a reaction from both of them. It could only be Huangfu Jintian." Huang Fusheng looked in Qiao Jin's direction and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Qiao Jin seems to be, also because of his mother." "Mother?" Yiqing Luo looked at Qiao Jin. Yiqing Luo had never asked about the relationship between Qiao Jin and the Huangfu family. She had never heard Qiao Jin mention anything about his mother. The Huangfu family didn't just use Old Master Huangfu as a bargaining chip, and even dragged Qiao Jin's mother? Looks like this matter was a little complicated. Yiqing Luo walked to Qiao Jin's side and placed her hand on Qiao Jin's shoulder. "Tell me, what's your plan now?" Yiqing Luo's voice wasn't considered soft. Not far away, the three Huangfu brothers had ugly expressions on their faces. They looked at each other, then at Ren Jianying in unison. The reason why they were here was because of the god of war. It was all because he believed Ren Jianying's words. They were relying on Ren Jianying. But now Ren Jianying, his face was ashen and pale. His eyes stared unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo. It was as if he had suffered an extremely severe shock. Earlier, Ren Jianying was easily subdued by Yiqing Luo. Even Ren Jianying wasn't Yiqing Luo's opponent. But wouldn't that be? The expressions of the three instantly turned extremely ugly as they swiftly turned their gazes towards Qiao Jin. Yiqing Luo was asking Qiao Jin for his opinion. As long as Qiao Jin didn't pursue the matter, Yiqing Luo would definitely not make a move. But, Qiao Jin. Let them beg for mercy from Qiao Jin. How could they do it? For them. Qiao Jin was a child born from a lowly servant. What rights did he have to become their younger brother? And what rights did he have to become the future successor of the Huangfu family? Chapter 45-48. A person whom he totally disdained. Now, he actually wanted them to beg for mercy? Even if their bodies were icy cold, they could clearly feel the murderous aura raging around them. They were unable to convince themselves to open their mouths. On the other side, Qiao Jin glanced sideways as he looked at the devastatingly beautiful face which was just inches away from him. The young lady's hand was casually placed on his shoulder. The corners of her lips were curled into a teasing arc. Apparently, she had intentionally raised her volume when she asked that question earlier, intentionally stirring up panic in the Huangfu family. Qiao Jin merely shot a glance and took a step back, widening the distance between him and Yiqing Luo. He raised his hand and patted his own shoulder as his deep eyes looked towards the horizon, at that huge nine-tailed fox who was standing in the sky. "I still want to live a little longer, just say what you want, don't touch me." At the instance when Yiqing Luo's arm rested on his shoulder, Qiao Jin felt that his back was about to be pierced into a hornet's nest by some kind of emotion. The overlord was still by the side. Did Yiqing Luo want him to die? Yiqing Luo smiled as she waved her hand. At most he would use his eyes to stare at you, but he wouldn't dare to really do anything to you. Xiao Jin expressed that with just this glare, he could already feel death waving at him. All right? The two of them were still chatting as though there was no one else around. This was simply belittling the surrounding group of people into dregs. The three Huangfu siblings' expressions turned uglier by the minute. Finally unable to tolerate it any longer, Huangfu Fengyan's fingers clenched tightly as she stared at Yiqing Luo with a venomous gaze. Huangfu Jin, if you touch us, you should know the consequences. Xiao Jin and Yiqing Luo were talking. Their voices suddenly stopped. Their gazes turned towards Huangfu Fengyan. His ordinary face, under the piercingly cold eyes, actually appeared a bit strange and treacherous. Huangfu Fengyan was so shocked that her face turned pale, but she still forced herself to continue speaking. We can't touch old master, but we can still touch your mother. If you don't persuade Yiqing Luo. If anything happens to us, we will return it to your mother 100 times. You can try. Let's see how long the old man can protect your mother. As Huangfu Fengyan spat out the words one by one, the crowd was stunned. The air around Xiao Jin seemed to have condensed into frost. The emotions in the depths of his eyes were dark. Like a whirlpool, it was as if it wanted to devour everything. This was the first time Yiqing Luo saw Xiao Jin's emotions fluctuating so much. What are you staring at? Huangfu Jin, you are an inauspicious person, you are a bastard. Pa. Suddenly, a clear and resounding slap resounded. The sound of the slap was so crisp that it almost echoed throughout the entire space. Huangfu Fengyan, your mouth is so dirty. Do you want me to help you wash it? A woman wearing a blue dress appeared. The woman held a crescent-shaped scythe that shone with black light. Xiao Yi. When Xiao Jin saw the person who had arrived, the icy cold expression on his face instantly dissipated. The people who came were Yan Xiao Yi and Gu Zishi, who had followed behind Yiqing Luo and finally managed to catch up. Yan Xiao Yi strode over to Xiao Jin's side, blocking him behind her. Following that, she stabbed the black scythe into the ground as she sneered at Huang Fengyan. If you dare to scold one more time, I'll cut off your tongue in minutes. That slap made half of Huang Fengyan's ears buzz. The scorching pain made her unable to open her mouth to speak. The moment she moved, it affected her muscles. It was so painful that it tore her heart apart. Chapter 45-49. Xiao Jin wrapped his arms around Yan Xiaoyi's waist. He placed his head on her shoulder. A light laugh came out from his lips. That laughter was filled with obvious joy. The coldness in his body had already faded. The expression on his face had also returned to his usual look. Yeah. Now he had Xiaoyi. He was no longer alone. The lonely days that he had been through. It would not appear again. Feeling the man's aura, it gradually calmed down. Yan Xiaoyi patted the back of his hand and pacified him. Be good, I'm here. Whoever dares to insult you and your mother, I'll swing my sickle and they will definitely die. She patted Xiao Jin's hand. Then she raised her head and looked towards the direction of the three Huangfu siblings, as one of the four heavenly families. Now that the Ren family has power in the heaven realm, your Huangfu family has to rely on the powerhouses who were once on equal footing to survive. No wonder you're not able to become the next successor of the Huangfu family. This sentence made the three Huangfu siblings' faces turn gloomy. Trying to use Ajin's mother to threaten Ajin? Go ahead and try. As long as you dare to touch Ajin's mother, we will absolutely kill you directly. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes were filled with coldness. You. Huangfu Dongyu clenched his teeth but had no way to refute her words. Xiao Jin's mother was their last bargaining chip. They indeed didn't dare to move. Trying to sow discord? By the side, Ren Jianying, who had regained her composure, opened her mouth slowly. The current her was no longer as flustered as before when her secret was exposed by Yiqing Luo. If one looked closely, they would be able to see a complacent smile on her brows. Complacent? Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly. She had been paying attention to Ren Jianying's situation. Ren Jianying had been immersed in the fear of her secret being exposed. Her emotions had been unable to calm down. But, at that moment earlier, she seemed to have gained some confidence. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched as she suddenly thought of something and immediately opened her mouth. Go! Just as she finished her words, a voice rang out. All of a sudden the entire ground caved in. Yiqing Luo's feet were in the air as she swiftly fell downwards. Gravel flew everywhere as the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. The next moment, her waist tightened. Her body was pulled into a warm embrace. Yiqing Luo hooked her arm around his neck. The man picked her up by the waist and with a sudden leap, he landed on the ground. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's little head popped out from his arms. Where is this place? Dmo Xian put her down on the ground, but his other hand was still hugging her waist tightly. Array. Another formation. Yi Qing Luo surveyed the surroundings. Earlier when I saw Ren Jianying's sudden confident look, I already guessed it. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness had countless forbidden spells and spells. This was especially true for forbidden formations that defied the will of the heavens. Since Ren Jianying was working with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness, then he used all sorts of methods to trick Huang Fusheng and Xiao Jin out of the Gu residence. He had already achieved his goal of luring her here. How could he not have prepared a foolproof plan? Moreover, this time, it was definitely not a small fight. Ren Jianying controlled the heavenly realm, which meant that the heavenly realm was already in the hands of the Dark Palace. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness had revealed her secret to the public. Apparently they were anxious to get something from her. The mastermind behind the Palace of Gloomy Darkness finally couldn't take it anymore? Now the place they were in was a stretch of empty space. It was a patch of gray and they couldn't see the scene in front of them clearly. Chapter 45-50. Is this an illusion? Yi Qing Luo couldn't see the surroundings clearly, so she retracted her vision and raised her head to look at Dmo Xian. If this is an illusion, then are you real or fake? Dmo Xian's wrist, which was locked on her waist, suddenly tightened. He pressed her petite body firmly into his arms. Following that, he lowered his head and placed it on her shoulder. His thin lips were very close to her earlobe. His warm breath splashed onto the young lady's skin. Lil Luo isn't always able to easily differentiate whether I'm real or fake. So now Lil Luo, tell me, am I real or fake? The man's low and hoarse voice was very magnetic and alluring. As he spoke, he gave out a low and light laugh. Yi Qing Luo's petite body trembled slightly. There was a scorching feeling on the skin on her neck. She rolled her eyes at the man as she raised her hand to block the man's mouth, which was on her neck, and pushed his head away. Fake, fake. Maya Xian is not this kind of beast who can be aroused anytime and anywhere. She still didn't know what kind of array this was. He was just messing around there. What if this illusion was something? The outside world could see it clearly. Wouldn't it be too embarrassing? Looks like Lil Luo still doesn't understand me well enough. Dmo Xian's thin lips rose slightly as his face was handsome and elegant. His hand slid upwards and held onto Yi Qing Luo's little hand, which was nudging his head. When facing Lil Luo, I'm a beast. Yi Qing Luo? She admitted defeat. She slapped away Dmo Xian's messing around hand. Yi Qing Luo walked forward, and as she walked, she looked around. Stop fooling around, let's find out what this place is first. Everyone should be scattered in different parts of the array, so we have to find everyone first to ascertain everyone's safety. Dmo Xian's hands hugged Yi Qing Luo's slender waist tightly from behind. Following that, he placed his head on her slender back. He sighed softly. I feel that I haven't been alone with you for a long time. I'm really not happy. Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps as she held onto the man's large palm and turned around. She raised her head, and her glistening eyes met Dmo Xian's eyes. Recently there are indeed a lot of things. She knew what Dmo Xian was worried about. Ever since they arrived in the Earth domain, she had always been separated from Dmo Xian. It wasn't easy for them to meet. Then they immediately separated due to other matters. Dmo Xian missed him. How could she not miss him as well? Yi Qing Luo's arms encircled the man's waist and her voice softened. Everything will be settled soon from now on. We will be together every day and never be separated again. Yi Qing Luo buried her head in the man's arms. She did not notice that Dmo Xian's lips had slightly curled upwards because of her gentle words. Also, his pair of peach blossom eyes that were like a pool of spring water seemed to be faintly discernible as he glanced at a certain place in the sky. It seemed to be a provocation. It also seemed to be a warning. Then his thin lips curled up again. He buried his head in the young girl's neck. I feel that this time is still very far away. How will Lil Luo comfort my lonely heart? It was rare to see her man acting coquettishly. Yi Qing Luo's brows were overflowing with tenderness. She laughed softly. Her hands cupped the man's face as she slowly placed her pink lips on his and planted a kiss on his lips. All right, I'll make it up to you after we return, be good? Dmo Xian's large palm locked onto Yi Qing Luo as he deepened the kiss. His peach blossom eyes were filled with smiles. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-51. Looking at the man's complacent look, Yi Qing Luo's expression turned even more gentle and tender. This man was addicted to acting coquettishly. Yi Qing Luo pinched his face. All right, let's go find out how to leave this godforsaken place. This time, Dmo Xian didn't pull her along to display his affection. Instead, he held her little hand and followed behind her obediently. What's going on? Shall we? Hold on tight. Zishi, don't move. The earth quaked and the mountains shook as the ground kept on collapsing. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest frantically found a safe place as they stabilized themselves. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Only then did the shaking of the earth and mountains slowly stop. Qiao Jin held the dagger which was stabbed into the stone wall while the other hand held onto Yan Xiaoyi. The both of them were hanging on the edge of the cliff. Below them, because of the collapse earlier, had turned into a bottomless abyss. And on the other side of the cliff, Gu Zishi and Huang Fusheng were hugging each other tightly. The place where the both of them were standing had cracked stone walls, as though a slight movement would cause them to fall. The surroundings had turned into a pile of ruins because of the earlier tremors. The place where the four of them were at was extremely dangerous. There was a possibility that a slight movement would cause the next wave of collapse. Then it would cause the next wave of collapse. Yan Xiaoyi maintained the calmness of her breathing as her eyes surveyed the surroundings. Finally, her gaze landed on a group of people on another mountain not too far away. Huangfu family and Ren Jianying. Ren Jianying stood right at the front as her face was filled with an unconcealable cold smirk. Yan Xiaoyi silently cursed him for being sinister. She immediately raised her head and looked at Qiao Jin. How is it, can you still hold on? Qiao Jin replied, no problem, let's go up first. Hold on tight, I'll do it. Yan Xiaoyi's slender hand moved as the black sickle in her hand suddenly swung upwards. The black sickle blade swept past as a blue light floated, only to see the black sickle blade piercing into the highest rock wall. The gravel rolled down with a crashing sound, as though it was about to collapse for the second time because of the black sickle blade's collision. The both of their bodies started to fall bit by bit. Crack. There was a slight noise. It seemed like the black scythe blade was stuck somewhere on the rock wall. The moment Qiao Jin's dagger, which was supporting the weight of two people, lost its strength due to the crack in the rock wall. Both of their bodies were entangled by a blue ribbon that the blade of the black scythe had drawn. The other side of the ribbon was wrapped around the black scythe blade. He steadied himself in midair. The two of them took a deep breath and followed the ribbon to the edge of the cliff. The sound of rocks tumbling into the abyss sounded as if the cliff was about to collapse again. On the other side, the two of them also helped each other to leave the most dangerous area. However, as he stood on this side of the cliff, he felt a chill run down his spine. The four of them still did not dare to act rashly. The four of them surveyed their surroundings, then looked at the group of people on the opposite hill. His expression changed slightly. Where are Qing Luo and Overlord? Why don't I see them? Earlier I seemed to have seen the Overlord charging towards Luo. Gu Zishi was searching the surroundings as she said, it should be the Overlord bringing Luo to some safe place. The Overlord has little 9, Qing Luo also has Chi Chi and the rest, so they should be fine. The few of them looked at the mountain top in front and immediately leapt up, heading towards the direction of Ren Jianying and the rest. Ren Jianying and the rest's faces were filled with complacency. They still want to look for Yi Qing Luo. They probably don't know that Yi Qing Luo has already been sent to another space by our palace lord. Huangfu Fengyan laughed complacently. Add bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 45-52. Without Yi Qing Luo around, can they still survive? Huangfu Dongyu's lips curled into a sinister sneer. Huangfu Fengyan sneered, of course not. These few trash in the lower realm like Nirvana realm they might be experts but this is heaven realm who do they think they are? We can finally kill those two eyesores, it's so satisfying. Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Fengyan exchanged glances as they smiled. Don't be happy too early. Huangfu Qifei's gentle face turned gloomy as he said calmly, haven't you noticed the Overlord has disappeared too? After Huangfu Qifei's reminder, the two of them then reacted. Yi Qing Luo wasn't the only one who disappeared in the quake. There was also the Overlord. Huangfu Fengyan's complacent smile froze on her face. She clenched her fists tightly as she gritted her teeth in anger. That woman. What's so good about that woman? The Overlord is actually so protective of her. With the Overlord following her, even if it's that array, there's no way to kill that woman. That's right. Who said we're going to kill her? Ren Jianying sneered as she raised her chin, her half-squinted beautiful eyes flashed past a trace of ruthlessness. Even if the Overlord entered the array, as long as the Palace Lord isn't willing to let them out, there's no way they can leave that space. As she said that, she smiled as she looked towards a certain direction behind the crowd. There sat a tall figure dressed in a black robe, entirely shrouded in darkness. He held a bronze mirror in his hands. Both eyes were staring at the bronze mirror without blinking. Wisps of black aura constantly lingered around his body, rolling and surging. When Ren Jianying looked at that person, a pair of beautiful eyes revealed a faintly discernible charm. Her lips curled into a smile. Her condition was excellent, perfect. It made her exquisite and beautiful face look even more beautiful and dazzling. Anyone could see that. Ren Jianying was interested in him. However, the man who was stared at by such a beautiful lady with an inviting gaze full of tender feelings didn't even raise his head as his gaze was fixed on the bronze mirror, as if he had seen something. Under the black robe, the pair of sinister black eyes were instantly covered with frost. The cold air around his body also dispersed at this moment. Suddenly he slammed the bronze mirror into the ground. His aura also followed suit and became filled with killing intent. For a moment, the atmosphere became extremely oppressive and strange. The three Huangfu siblings didn't dare to speak again. Ren Jianying hid the seductive look in her eyes and glanced at him and the bronze mirror that was pressed on the ground. If her memory served her right, the copper mirror in his hand was used to see what was happening inside the spell formation, which meant that he could directly see everything that Yiqing Luo and Dmo Shen had experienced after they entered the array. After the palace master of Gloomy Palace sent him into the formation and into another space, he held the bronze mirror and looked at the situation inside the formation. How could it suddenly? Why is he so angry? Did he see something in the bronze mirror? Why do I feel like this palace lord of secluded darkness palace was extremely concerned about that young lady called Yiqing Luo? At the thought of this, a trace of unwillingness flashed across Ren Jianying's eyes. She was interested in the palace lord of secluded darkness palace, because she felt that in this world only someone like the palace lord of secluded darkness palace, someone with status and identity, was worthy of her. She was merely working together with the palace lord of secluded darkness palace, tasting some benefits from the palace lord. Chapter 45-53. If she could be with the palace master of secluded darkness palace, she became the mistress of the palace of abyss. It would be even easier for her to get what she wanted. She wouldn't have to submit herself to an elder of the palace of gloomy shadows who could only say a few words. Thinking of this, Ren Jianying calmed herself down and put on a beautiful smile as she walked towards the palace master of the secluded palace. Her steps were slow and graceful. When she walked in front of the palace master of the gloomy palace, she leaned forward and smiled gently at him. "Palace master, do you think I'm right?" When Ren Jianying leaned forward, her shiny black hair cascaded down. The fragrance of a woman seeped into the nose of the palace master of gloomy palace. There were even a few strands that landed on the back of the man's hand. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace frowned and looked up. Under the black robe, his pitch-black eyes stared coldly at Ren Jianying. The emotions in his eyes were extremely calm. There was not the slightest fluctuation. "Get out of my way," he said, his voice cold and authoritative. Ren Jianying's smile froze on her face. But very quickly his smile returned and he slowly straightened his body, putting some distance between them. She then asked with a smile, "Palace master, do you think I'm right?" The eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace were indifferent as he asked word by word, "What did you say?" Ren Jianying, his face contorted in embarrassment. She tried her best to please him. He didn't even notice her. Ren Jianying took a deep breath as she maintained her smile. "I've told Huang Fu and the other young masters and young miss that as long as Palace Lord refuses to release them, Yiqing Luo and the Overlord will not be able to escape from that array, right?" She paused and then continued, "Palace Master, your formation is the best in the world. Even venerable sovereigns are no match for you." The eyes of the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace dimmed. He hung his head again. He shifted his gaze away from Ren Jianying and stared unblinkingly at the bronze mirror on the ground. His aura became much colder. Ren Jianying was very sensitive to other people's emotions. Naturally, he felt the flames on the body of the palace head getting colder and colder. She hurriedly changed the topic. "Palace Lord will definitely be able to achieve your wish, but those two from Huangfu family are here and they seem to have sensed that Yiqing Luo's disappearance is related to us. I wonder how Palace Lord is going to deal with those four people?" "My wish has been fulfilled." The voice of the Palace Master of Netherworld Palace was a little low. He gently placed his hand on the back of the bronze mirror. His tone was filled with disappointment. He was afraid that he would never be able to fulfill his wish in this lifetime. He suppressed the unnecessary emotions that he shouldn't have and followed Ren Jianying's words to look forward. On the other side, Yan Xiaoyi and the other three had already landed on the mountain that they were on. Yan Xiaoyi wielded the black scythe and charged over aggressively. It was as if they were going to fight. The pupils of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace constricted. How to deal with them? They were the people whom Yiqing Luo valued the most. If they were hurt, Yiqing Luo would be upset. Especially when the people who hurt them were his men. Those two young masters from the Huangfu family, Palace Lord had previously promised to hand them over to the Huangfu family to deal with. Those three are now waiting for Palace Lord's opinion. Ren Jianying sensed the hesitation in the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. She smiled and reminded gently, "Listen to Palace Lord's words." The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace's eyes wavered even more. Chapter 45-54. After some time, his fingers suddenly clenched tightly. The bronze mirror on the ground was once again held in his palm. He spoke calmly, "Up to you." Ren Jianying's red lips rose as her voice turned coquettish. "Then I shall make this decision on behalf of Palace Lord." The Palace Lord's gaze fell back onto the bronze mirror as he didn't bother about Ren Jianying. Ren Jianying, who didn't get any response, flashed past her eyes with a sliver of embarrassment and humiliation. But she didn't reveal any of it on her face. Instead she smiled and bowed towards him as she turned around and returned to the front of the three Huangfu siblings. "Patriarch Ren, what were you talking about with that Palace Lord earlier?" Huangfu Fengyan's gaze turned towards the man dressed in black robe. Anyone could tell what she was thinking in her eyes. Ren Jianying saw the emotions in Huangfu Fengyan's eyes as she snorted in disdain. But the smile on her lips was very shallow. Nothing much, just asking Palace Lord how he intends to deal with those four people. After all, they are Yiqing Luo's good brothers. What did Palace Lord say? Huangfu Fengyan's expression changed slightly when she heard that. She knew the Palace Lord's feelings towards Yiqing Luo. If it was because of Yiqing Luo's relationship with Palace Lord. But if he didn't let them do anything to Huangfu Sheng and Huangfu Jin, they really didn't dare to act rashly. Ren Jianying's eyelids drooped slightly as she seemed a little shy and sweet. Palace Lord said, "Everything is up to me." Huangfu Fengyan's expression froze as her eyes were filled with disbelief. Ren Jianying's intention was extremely obvious. Coupled with her shy and timid expression, Chu Yunxing couldn't help but sigh. It was hard not to misunderstand. But, wasn't that Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace in love with Yiqing Luo? Palace Lord really dotes on Patriarch Ren. Huangfu Qifei suddenly stood in front of Huangfu Fengyan as he gave an elegant smile. "I wonder how does Patriarch Ren wish to deal with those four people?" Ren Jianying arrogantly raised her chin as her brows were filled with cold arrogance. "Since I've promised you on behalf of Seclusion Palace that I will let you deal with those two Huangfu bastards, I will keep my promise." Huangfu Fengyan felt that something was amiss. She frowned and said, "Ren family head, are you sure Palace Mistress really?" She had yet to finish her words. Huangfu Qifei pressed down hard on her arm. The strength of his 5 fingers seemed to have pierced into her flesh. Huangfu Fengyan's face turned pale from the pain, and she couldn't say a single word. Huangfu Qifei smiled warmly and continued Huangfu Fengyan's words. "Many thanks, Patriarch Ren. Then leave the 4 of them to our Huangfu clan." Ren Jianying's ice-cold gaze swept past Huangfu Qifei and landed on Huangfu Fengyan. She sneered and curled her lips. Her red nail lightly pressed against her lips. "The Huangfu family really needs a smart person like you to take charge of the situation." Huangfu Qifei's smile grew even wider. "Many thanks for the praise, Patriarch Ren." Ren Jianying waved her hand arrogantly, turned around and walked towards the Palace Master of Twilight Palace. He looked at her back as she left. Huangfu Fengyan's expression was extremely ugly as she bit her lower lip and asked softly, "Third brother, what do you mean by this? It's fine if you're stupid at home, but in the current situation you're still stupid. Even if you die, you deserve it." Huangfu Qifei slowly let go of her wrist, and the space between his brows was still as warm as jade. But the words that came out of his mouth were bone-chilling. Chapter 45-55. Huangfu Fengyan took a deep breath. "Third brother, I know that we need to borrow her strength, but she is only one of the 4 great Tian families and our status is not lower than hers." "Shut up." Huangfu Qifei snorted coldly. "What you said was in the past. But now there are no 4 great families, there is only a Ren family." Huangfu Fengyan stared at Huangfu Qifei in a daze. After a long time she finally spoke with a hoarse voice. "Third brother, do you want to fight big brother? for the position of patriarch of the Huangfu clan? Rao. Huangfu Chifei smiled warmly, and there was faint warmth between his brows. Didn't Big Brother seize his current position from Huangfu Jin as well? Huangfu Fengyan widened her eyes in shock. Huangfu Chifei moved closer to her. Lifting his hand, he placed it on her shoulder and patted her gently. Since this position doesn't belong to Huangfu Jin, it can belong to Big Brother. Why can't it belong to me? In terms of strength and strategy, I am above Big Brother, am I not? Fourth sister, think carefully about how you want to choose your future path. Third brother really appreciates you. As he finished speaking, Huangfu Chifei wore a warm smile and walked in the direction of the four people who had come to greet him. Huangfu Fengyan was stunned on the spot. His heart was thumping non-stop. What did third brother mean by that? Was he forcing her to make a choice? From a long time ago, she knew that this seemingly warm and gentle third brother wasn't as simple as he seemed on the surface. They also knew that third brother had always been smarter than them. But he had never thought that he would be interested in the position of patriarch of the Huangfu family. In a vast and empty space that stretched as far as the eye could see, Yiqing Luo and Diamo Xian walked for a long time, but the surrounding situation didn't change at all. Yiqing Luo didn't sense any other signs of life. She tugged at Diamo Xian's sleeve. Xian, isn't something amiss? No matter how we walk, we seem to be going in circles, not to mention meeting other people. Diamo Xian halted his footsteps and lowered his eyes to look at her. You've finally discovered it. Yiqing Luo? You mean you already knew? Diamo Xian nodded. That's right, from the moment we entered, we already realized it. Yiqing Luo. Then why didn't you say so earlier? I want to be alone with you for a while. Diamo Xian wrapped his arms around her slender waist and buried his head into her neck, inhaling the delicate fragrance from her body. Yiqing Luo's heart immediately softened. The expression on his face also softened. This man really knew how to soothe her temper. Yiqing Luo helplessly stared at him as she stretched out her hand and pinched his face. I think you are intentionally trying to see me embarrass myself. Diamo Xian's large palm clasped her little hand as he chuckled. I just want to look at you. Yiqing Luo. Flirt again. She put on a serious face and got down to business. If I'm not wrong, this array has separated us from Xiao Yi and the others. Unless we break this array, otherwise we won't be able to see Xiao Yi and the others. Xiao Yi and the others will be fine, right? Separate her from her brothers. Was their goal to target her, or Qiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng? Those three Huangfu family siblings all had strong ambitions. Towards Qiao Jin's existence they were fearful. Towards Huangfu Sheng's existence, they were jealous and indignant. If they were given a chance, they would definitely not let Qiao Jin and Huangfu Sheng off. End of this chapter. Chapter 45-56. You can rest assured. Diamo Xian raised his hand and smoothed out Yiqing Luo's creased brows. Don't belittle those brothers of yours. Yiqing Luo smiled as she pursed her lips. I've never belittled them, but the opponents aren't ordinary people. This was the Heaven Realm. They were the Huangfu clan and the Gloomy Palace. That Gloomy Palace had been jumping up and down for such a long time. It wasn't just her that couldn't handle it. Even the Emperor Palace had not been able to find out who the mastermind was until now. It was enough to show that the power behind the Dark Abyss Palace was far beyond her imagination. Don't forget, Qiao Jin is the acknowledged successor of the Huangfu clan. Diamo Xian pinched her nose. With the Huangfu family's golden pupils, his strength is not necessarily below yours. Yiqing Luo was slightly shocked. Diamo Xian rarely praised someone. To be praised by Diamo Xian, it meant that the other party was really strong. Who would have thought that Qiao Jin, as the successor of the Huangfu clan, would actually possess such formidable strength? He even pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. If he had known earlier, he would have left most of the matters to Qiao Jin to settle. Hearing what Diamo Xian said, Yiqing Luo's heart finally heaved a sigh of relief. She clasped her hands together. The most important thing now is to find the eye of the formation, break out of it and rush to their side as soon as possible. Pausing, she used a suspicious gaze to size Diamo Xian up and down. Don't tell me you know the method to break the array but refuse to tell me? In all honesty, I really don't know. Diamo Xian put on an innocent face and shook his head sincerely. Yiqing Luo stared at him suspiciously for quite a while. Scheme didn't find anything. She almost lost herself in his charms. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and pressed her hand on his elegant face. I'll trust you one more time, let's go look for the array eye. Diamo Xian laughed lowly. A warm breath sprayed onto her palm. They were like feathers, tickling her heart. Yiqing Luo moved her hand away and pressed her palm on his chest, rubbing it hard. She rubbed the itch in her palm onto his body. She glared at the man, warning him not to tease her again. Then he turned his gaze to the surroundings. The palace of gloomy shadows had specially separated her from Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. There must be a reason. He wanted to trap her in the formation. Or was he trying to achieve something through this formation? Upon closer inspection, in this empty space, the surroundings seemed illusory but vaguely, there were strands of black aura lingering around. But the black gas, as it approached the two of them. However, he avoided the two of them and brushed past them. Originally, Yiqing Luo didn't pay much attention to those black chi fluctuations. However, she suddenly thought of something. He stared unblinkingly at the black aura floating in the air. As expected, he found that the black gas was floating in the same direction. Found it. Yiqing Luo held onto Dmo Xian's hand as they headed towards the direction where the black chi was floating. After a while, the scene in front of them was no longer empty. Instead, it was a bloody catastrophe. The sky was dyed red with blood. The field was littered with corpses. The war drums continued to beat. The two of them stood in the middle of the battle. This is... The sudden scene caused Yiqing Luo to be in a daze. Chapter 45-57. But their position wasn't very good. There were people in all directions. Blood splattered. The corpses fell. Only by flying up into the sky could they avoid being accidentally injured by the soldiers. But what made Yiqing Luo astonished was they didn't evade. Whereas the weapons in the soldiers' hands directly pierced through their bodies, slashing towards the soldiers at the side. Yiqing Luo's evading action stopped just like that. She tried to stretch out her hand towards those soldiers. After waving it for a while. Indeed, it didn't affect the soldiers at all. The battle was still ongoing. The both of them seemed like a transparent existence. No one could see them. This should be a mirage. Dmo Xian held her little hand tightly. Follow me closely, be careful. Yiqing Luo nodded. A sudden scene of the battlefield. Who knew what tricks were they playing? But, don't you feel that this battle looks like a battle between cultivators? Yiqing Luo felt a little strange. The sky above the battlefield rippled with layers of profound waves. The soldiers were using their profound energy attacking each other. The corpses were in an extremely horrifying state. Dmo Xian looked at the huge battlefield in front of him as he nodded slightly. This should be a battle between cultivators and... I don't know if it's an illusion, but I feel that this scene is exceptionally familiar. Familiar? Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as her gaze swiftly swept across the surroundings. This battle actually made Xian feel familiar? Could it be that he had participated in this battle before? This way, let's go. Dmo Xian pulled her as he headed towards the battlefield. His footsteps were a little messy. The hand which held Yiqing Luo's hand slightly increased the strength. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she looked at the man's back view. Her fingers also tightened as she held his hand as she quietly followed behind him. Just at this moment, suddenly on the battlefield, a violent gale arose, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The darkness corroded, as though it was going to swallow the entire battlefield. While the soldiers were panicking, another burst of fiery profound wave as it spread in all directions. That dazzling red glow, like a blazing inferno. In an instant, it intertwined with that darkness. Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo saw an extremely familiar figure appearing on the horizon. That person was dressed in a blazing red robe, and his aura was disdainful. A red veil covered half of her face. The only thing that was revealed was a pair of beautiful eyes that shone with a captivating light. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted abruptly. God, Emperor's Emperor, yes. The woman in red was Feng. She would never remember wrongly. Why did she see Feng in the illusion of this battlefield? Hadn't she already left the barbaric Bloodbone King's memory space? Feng continued to release dazzling profound light. It suppressed the wave after wave of darkness. The battle was quite exciting. Yiqing Luo was puzzled. He kept staring at Feng, sizing her up. She wanted to ask Dmo Xian. But she discovered that Dmo Xian's eyes were staring at Feng without blinking. His eyes were deep and dark, unable to see through his emotions. But Yiqing Luo could feel it. Dmo Xian's current mood was obviously not the same as usual. She thought about it. She still did not open her mouth to disturb Dmo Xian. The killing on the battlefield continued. Both sides fought for an unknown period of time. The scene in front of their eyes suddenly changed. That valiant-looking Fenggu who was still on the battlefield earlier, was now lying weakly on the bed. That face, which was extremely similar to Yiqing Luo, was deathly pale. There wasn't any spirit in his eyes. Chapter 45-58. Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by a needle, with some faint stabbing pain. Her breathing quickened as she stared unblinkingly at the deathly pale face. Her throat felt as though it was being choked by something. That little hand which was grabbing onto Diamo Xian unknowingly increased its strength. The sovereign of the Divine Emperor, how could he become so weak? I've roughly guessed the reason why the Nether Palace used this array to trap you. Diamo Xian stretched out his long arm and pulled the young lady into his embrace. The palace master of the secluded Darkness Palace didn't get any information he wanted when he entered the barbaric Blood-Bone King's memories. But you, in that memory, can see memories that they can't see. So, they want to use this memory to dig out what you know about that period of time in the past and get the clues they want. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. But I didn't see any of these in the Blood-Bone Barbaric King. This should be the part of the memory that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness knows. Diamo Xian's vision looked towards the young lady who was lying on the bed not too far away, who looked extremely similar to Yiqing Luo. He sighed softly. The Palace of Darkness wants you to know about this part of your memories. The Tenebrous Palace also had the memories of the Divine Emperor? Could it be, the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was also someone from that time? That person. Why did he let her see this memory of the Divine Emperor? Stay awake, don't be affected by everything here. Diamo Xian's gentle voice was close to her ear. His warmth enveloped the girl. I don't know what method Tenyu Palace is using to search your memories, but, as long as your will is strong, Tenyu Palace won't have the chance. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and clenched her fist. All right. As the two of them spoke, Fenggu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was obviously jet black. She was poisoned. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. The sovereign of the Divine Emperor was poisoned. How did she get poisoned? Yiqing Luo's heart was in a mess and she was just about to step forward to check out what poison it was. He had yet to move. He saw an old woman in her 50s, holding a baby in her arms, walking over quickly. When he saw the old woman, Fenggu, who was lying on the bed, immediately propped herself up and looked at the baby with infatuated eyes. Quick, bring Luo over. Her face was filled with reluctance and attachment to the little baby. Master. The old woman carried the baby to Fengji's bedside and handed him over. Fengji's hands were shaking. He gently touched the soft baby. It was like he couldn't wait to tightly pull her into his embrace. However, he was also worried that he would crush the baby, so he kept controlling his strength. Luo, I'm sorry. Fengji's reddened eyes stared deeply at the baby's face. Since you were born, Mother has not been able to properly accompany you. Now, I can't keep you company anymore. Tears rolled down Fengji's cheeks. The baby was still ignorant. He grabbed Fengji's hair with his little hands and squeaked. Fenggu held the baby and talked for a while. Until that face was so pale that it looked like he would stop breathing the next moment. She couldn't bear to shift her vision to the old woman. Grandma, carry Luo well. Chapter 45-59. The old lady carried the baby carefully as she looked at Fenggu with heartache. God Emperor, Qing Luo is right here. This old servant will take good care of her. Take a rest first, and when your body is better, you will be able to accompany Qing Luo. Fengji's gaze returned to the baby's face. Her eyes were burning as she stared greedily, as if she wanted to remember the baby's face in her heart. That kind of tenderness, that kind of reluctance. There's no time. Her voice was very hoarse, as if something was strangling her. Grandma, you know? I don't have time. The old lady's eyes turned red. No, God Emperor. You will be fine. She placed the baby in her arms in front of Fenggu and said in a choked and anxious voice, God Emperor, look here, this is your child. Don't tell me you can bear to leave her alone? Fengji's lips twitched, as if she wanted to laugh. But she couldn't muster up any strength. Can't bear to, how could I bear to? Her voice was so soft that it was mixed with the wind, making it sound unreal. But, it's too late, there's no time. Fenggu closed her eyes in pain. The tears overflowed from the corners of her eyes and slid down her cheeks. The old lady was almost choking with sobs. Fenggu adjusted her breathing and let the old lady carry the baby, facing her face. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes again. Suddenly her 5 fingers moved. pierced into her heart. Blood blended with her blazing robe. The air seemed to be filled with a thick smell of blood. The old lady cried out involuntarily, "God Emperor, what are you doing?" The old lady panicked and wanted to put down the baby to stop Feng Ji's self-harm. But before she could move, Feng Ji's painful voice stopped her. "Grandma Bai, don't move." The moment she spoke, her breathing became messy. It affected the wound on her chest and the pain was twitching. That originally pale face at this moment looked even paler. There was no trace of blood on it. This was not only the old lady choking with sobs. Even Yiqing Luo, who was standing by the side, couldn't stop her tears from flowing down along the corners of her eyes. Yiqing Luo was totally unable to control her own emotions. His heart ached to the extreme. Diamo Xian gently patted her back as his gentle lips kissed her hair, his actions soothing her gently. Finally, Feng Ji's hand slowly stretched out. On her palm, there was a sparkling paste with blood on it. It was shaped like a heart. It shone with the flowing light of profound waves. When the old woman saw the thing in Feng Ji's palm, her face immediately turned pale. "Divine Emperor, what are you doing? This is your profound heart jade." In this world there are only two divine phoenix profound heart jades. Feng Ji's voice was barely audible. It was hard for him to even make a sound. "One is in Qing Luo's body and the other is mine. By Mama, I'm very clear about my own situation. I can't continue to accompany her. This is the only thing I can do and also, something I must do." Feng Ji's voice was getting weaker and weaker. Even the sound of his breath was a little erratic. She flipped her palm. That blood-stained profound jade heart was surrounded by a profound wave. Endless profound waves lingering around. Tightly, quickly and orderly they rushed into the baby's body. The dazzling profound light filled the entire room. Chapter 4561. Under Su Qingbing's worry and anxiety, she brought along the Blood Mercenaries group's elite mercenaries. The moment she struck, those killers could only wait to be captured. Yiqing Luo and Su Qingbing walked to the backyard. Bo Songyi was supporting Gu Zixi as they walked over. "Group leader, Zixi is injured." Gu Zixi smiled at Su Qingbing. "Group leader, I'm fine, it's just a small injury." Su Qingbing looked at Gu Zixi's pale face and frowned slightly. "What's going on? Why are there killers here?" She raised her eyes and glanced at Bo Songyi. "Have you checked clearly who are these killers here to kill?" Mentioning this, Bo Songyi's expression sunk. He glanced at Pei Sheng's direction from the corner of his eyes and gave a cold harumph. "The trouble that lad created has caused Zixi to suffer. I'm really fine, it has nothing to do with Sheng." Gu Zixi heard Bo Songyi's tone and immediately opened her mouth to explain. Bo Songyi couldn't help but sneer. "He can't even protect you, what kind of man is he?" Gu Zixi bit her lower lip as a sliver of anger surfaced on her face. "Bo Songyi, you." Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Su Qingbing. "Sheng? Not calling me brother anymore?" Su Qingbing opened her mouth. It indeed suppressed the accusation that Gu Zixi was about to say. Gu Zixi's face blushed slightly as she slowly lowered her eyelids, looking a little shy. "Not brother anymore. TSK." Su Qingbing's lips curled as her elegant face broke out into a smile. "Then congratulations, the clouds have dispersed to see the moon." Gu Zixi's face turned even redder. The two of them spoke one after another. Bo Songyi was completely stunned by the amount of information that was revealed. He looked at Gu Zixi in astonishment as his voice trembled slightly. You and that lad." "Amen." Gu Zixi smiled as she nodded. The radiance in Bo Songyi's eyes dimmed. But he pretended not to mind as he said, "Congratulations." Coincidentally, Pei Sheng, with the help of the mercenaries, had restrained all the killers and was anxiously looking for Gu Zixi. When he saw Gu Zixi, he quickly walked over. He stretched out his long arm and pulled Gu Zixi away from Bo Songyi's side into his embrace. He placed his large palm on Gu Zixi face and gently caressed it. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Gu Zixi leaned against his chest, and her pretty face was slightly flushed. "I'm fine." When their eyes met, Yi Shiwen's expression changed. It was as if there was no room for anyone else. Bo Songyi looked at his empty wrist, then raised his head and looked at Gu Zixi, who was obviously happy and sweet. His hand, which was suspended in midair, clenched into a fist. Su Qingbing walked over and gently patted his shoulder. Then he walked past Bo Songyi and walked into the courtyard. This melodramatic relationship drama made Yiqing Luo smack her lips non-stop. However, she did not intend to intervene in this melodramatic scene. She glanced at the two of them, and after confirming that they only had some superficial injuries, she followed Su Qingbing into the courtyard. When he passed by Pei Sheng, she took out a medicine bottle and stuffed it into his hand. In the courtyard, the mercenaries stood by the side. The killers knelt on the ground and one by one, their masks were torn off, revealing their faces. The killers had apparently been injected with profound qi, and were rooted to the ground, unable to even commit suicide. The mercenaries stood neatly by the side. The killers were pressed onto the ground in a sorry state. This stark contrast. TSK, to let Blood Red's elite mercenaries come over to wrap things up. This was really a waste of God's resources. Chapter 4562. If the Palace of Darkness is unable to get the memory they want from me, will they let us out? Yiqing Luo raised her hand and placed it gently on her chest. Gently, it was pressed on the direction of her chest. Diamo Xian shook his head. No, they should know about that memory earlier. The Sovereign of God Emperor had injected her divine phoenix profound heart jade's energy into your body. They should be trying to find the real location of the Divine Emperor's tomb through you. Divine Emperor's tomb? Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids slightly. She had roughly guessed the real motive of the Palace of Darkness. It should be to find out the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb from her. Back in Nirvana Realm, when she met the Dark Forces, King of Darkness's target was her profound heart jade. It belonged to her and not the Sovereign of God Emperors. As for the Palace of Darkness, they had tried to deal with her several times but they didn't dare to harm her life. Because the Palace of Darkness knew that she was the daughter of the Sovereign of God Emperor. She could find the Divine Emperor's tomb. More accurately speaking, only she could open the door to the Divine Emperor's tomb. The Palace of Darkness's real motive was the Divine Emperor's tomb. So, Palace of Darkness wants to find the exact location of the Divine Emperor's tomb through that memory of mine or to find a way to open the tomb. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes solemnly. Both, I guess. Diamo Xian caressed her hair. Now that we're clear of the Palace of Darkness's motive, we're not considered to be too passive. Yiqing Luo nodded her head vigorously. Emin, we need to hurry and find the array core, then break the array and leave this place. One more second in the array. Yiqing Luo felt flustered. Who knew if the Palace of Darkness would come up with something new to force her consciousness out? Just at this moment. Suddenly, a dazzling ray of light appeared in between the two of them. This sudden ray of light made the both of them unable to react in time. The next moment, the both of them felt a blinding ray of light in front of them. Subconsciously they shut their eyes. The ray of light quickly enveloped the both of them. Then the light gradually dissipated. Yiqing Luo then slowly opened her eyes. After the strong light, her eyes still felt uncomfortable. She rubbed her eyes and said, Ah Xian, what kind of trick is this formation going to play? However, there was a moment of silence. There was no response from Diamo Xian. She grabbed a few. They could only grab air. Her expression froze and she hurriedly moved her hand away. The man who had always been holding her hand and hugging her had disappeared. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Clearly, when the light shone just now, their hands were still holding together. How could it be, all of a sudden I can't sense his presence anymore? Ah Xian. Ah Xian. She raised her voice and called out, but there was no response. His surroundings were still that illusory space. It was just that the person beside him was no longer there. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly, her long and narrow eyes squinted as she speedily surveyed the surroundings, maintaining her vigilance. This was obviously a trick of the Dark Nether Palace. He wanted to separate her from Diamo Xian, so that he could lay his hands on her. If that was the case, this formation could be controlled at any time. The person who set up the formation must be in the dark, silently observing everything within the formation. So he would make appropriate adjustments according to the situation within the formation. Chapter 4563. Which meant? She could use this array to find the person who set it up. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened. In the empty space, there was a vast expanse of whiteness that stretched as far as the eye could see. She simply sat on the ground. No matter which way she walked, it was the same environment in front. She wanted to see how well the Palace of Darkness could keep their composure. After Yiqing Luo sat down, she looked lazy, but in actual fact she was releasing her senses to sense all the changes in the surroundings. She secretly used her mental energy to try to contact the pet space or the Azure Dew bracelet. But no matter if it was the pet space or the Azure Dew bracelet, there was no response. This array also cut off the connection between her and the pet space as well as the Azure Dew bracelet. The Palace of Darkness was planning to make her isolated and helpless, so that they could penetrate her mental defense. Yiqing Luo didn't move. The surrounding nothingness was also silent. The entire space seemed to be completely silent. Not a single sound could be heard. Not knowing how long had passed, Yiqing Luo's heart was as calm as a pool of stagnant water, without any ripples. The Palace of Darkness couldn't find any opportunity to attack her consciousness. Suddenly she felt a burning pain in her chest, as if a ball of fire was burning in her chest. Yiqing Luo's breath stopped as her fingers pressed against her chest. That was the profound jade heart. It was agitated. Yiqing Luo concentrated slightly as she tried to calm her emotions. The Palace of Darkness couldn't hold it in any longer. As long as the Palace of Darkness was anxious, she would be able to find the key to break this array. The burning and scorching heat in her chest was like a ball of fire, trying to break out from her body. This agitated feeling, it belonged to the Emperor of God's profound jade heart, as if it was about to leave her body. Your profound jade heart is the key to open the Emperor of God's tomb. In a trance, there seemed to be someone talking to her. The voice was very soft and the surroundings were very noisy. She couldn't hear it clearly. You are the key. Quick, use your key to open that door. As long as you open that door, you will obtain the supreme glory. The illusory voice was still ringing in his ears. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she only felt the scorching feeling in her chest as it started to surge. It was as if something was being torn apart. The ethereal and noisy voices in her ears kept vibrating in her brain. Yiqing Luo only felt that there was something throbbing in her forehead. Her breathing quickened. He pressed hard on his chest. The secluded darkness palace was too sinister. He knew he could not shake her heart. To actually use hypnosis, to bewitch her. Yiqing Luo shut her eyes tightly. He calmed himself down and calmed himself down. He tried hard to ignore the explosion in his head. However, the burning sensation in his chest was like a ball of raging fire. Tell me the location of the Divine Emperor's tomb, and I'll take you with me, to ascend the throne. The pinnacle of humans. The noise was still ringing in his ears. Vaguely, she seemed to feel a large palm slowly reaching towards her. That was a hand that was totally different from DMO Xian's. It gave her a warm feeling, filled with hope. She didn't know why, but from this hand she could see warmth and hope. But in her mind there was a voice that kept repeating this. The young lady's eyes gradually became misty. Towards that hand slowly, she stretched out her hand. Chapter 45-64. The young lady's fair fingers, under the vast whiteness, seemed to be plated with a layer of faint fluorescence. Slowly, it was placed into that invisible large palm. The fog spread, curling upwards like smoke. The young lady's hand came into contact with that large palm. Just as that large palm was about to hold the young lady's hand in the palm, the young lady suddenly moved. That soft and boneless little hand, her 5 fingers were like an eagle's claw, clasping that large palm. The young lady's pink lips curled slightly. When she raised her eyes, there was no longer any pain and confusion on her face. That large palm which was clasped by her tried to retract in panic. But it was clasped tightly by the young lady, totally unable to move. Trying to escape? It's too late. Yiqing Luo gave a cold laugh, as a piercingly cold glint flashed past her eyes. She grabbed that large palm, pulling it hard, bringing along a vast profound glow, as though it was going to devour everything around it. You've been deliberately mystifying for such a long time, it's time for me to see your real face. Following her chilly voice rang the violent actions of the hand. The surrounding illusory environment started to crack, turning into pieces of broken pieces. Broken pieces. The owner of that hand, which was enveloped by the illusory fog, gradually revealed a shadow. A tall and straight figure. Similar to the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace, he was covered in a black robe, totally unable to see that person's appearance. The mastermind of Seclusion Palace. That person who had been plotting against her secretly. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold, as her body suddenly dashed towards that side. The other hand swiftly stretched out, tugging the other party's black robe. Her hand was just about to touch that figure's black robe. A bam sound was heard. A cold glint flashed past. That person actually directly chopped off that arm which was clasped tightly by Yiqing Luo. Immediately after, with a leap, disappearing in the sky in the midst of the broken pieces. Yiqing Luo? What the? This godly operation was simply too ruthless. Wasn't this fellow too ruthless towards himself? In order to maintain his mystery, he chopped it off. Yiqing Luo lowered her head, looking at that broken arm which was dripping with blood. He was speechless once more. She threw the severed arm to the ground. Motherf asterisk her. Just a little bit more and he would know what the dark rat hiding in the dark looked like. It was difficult to get a field. Can't you stay a little longer? Don't you want to make a comeback by living in your lines forever? Hashtag complaints from the official site. Hashtag Yiqing Luo's heart felt worse than a husky. How could you not be affected? In the shattered space, a strange voice that was so deep that its gender and emotions could not be discerned drifted in from all directions. However, Yiqing Luo heard the bewilderment in that person's tone. She looked around her. It was impossible to determine the person's location from the direction of the voice. She narrowed her eyes and her lips curled into a cold arc. After fighting with you so many times, don't tell me you still don't understand that all the illusions you've created have no effect on me? Dmo Xian had reminded her right from the start to maintain her own consciousness. The moment she separated from Dmo Xian. Thus, she armed herself with armor. From the moment the hypnosis technique which bewitched her rang in her ears, she was already on her guard. Pretending to be fooled was just to force out the real mastermind. Ah, ha ha ha. That illusory voice suddenly laughed. That sinister laughter was extremely treacherous and terrifying. Dear, this chapter has ended. I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Chapter 4565. Young lady, you're very confident. That cold voice seemed to be wrapped in frost. Confidence is a good thing, but blind confidence will only make you die faster. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change, her slender brows raised slightly. This sentence, I'll return it to you. She paused, then her lips curled into a smile. I think even if I'm really going to die, you won't bear to let me die. So even if you die, I won't die. The surrounding air seemed to have condensed into frost. It was especially gloomy. After a long time, that cold voice sounded again. Young lady, you're very smart, but unfortunately, until now, you're still not able to understand the true meaning of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers gently pressed on her chest. Her pink lips curled slightly as she asked with a smile that didn't look like a smile. So what? Even if I'm unable to understand it, this Profound Heart Jade is ultimately mine. Even if you want it, you won't be able to get it. The Overlord isn't by your side, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. Aren't you afraid that this seat will take action personally? That cold voice revealed a threatening chill. Indistinctly, it was mixed with the excitement of meeting prey. Yiqing Luo's expression still didn't have much emotional changes. She gave a sarcastic smile. Oh? The person who just chopped off his own hand and ran away wasn't me. The voice stopped in an instant. A fragmented environment. Once again it fell into dead silence. Yiqing Luo's eyelids drooped slightly as she gazed at her own fingers pressing on her chest. Her long and narrow eyes were suffused with a faint glow. You set up this array, actually your motive is not only to obtain the blood-bone barbaric king's memories from my mind. Before you said that earlier, I was still thinking, what is your motive, the real motive of this array? Now I can basically confirm it. That voice laughed lowly. Tell me about it. Yiqing Luo's finger tapped on her chest. If you wanted this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, you had a huge chance to directly dig out the Profound Heart Jade from my body, but you didn't. In addition to what the King of Darkness once said a long time ago, my body is the vessel for this Profound Phoenix Heart Jade. This also means that only I can nurture this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. What you want isn't the current Profound Heart Jade, but a Profound Heart Jade that's been nourished by my body and has already completely matured. Yiqing Luo's voice paused for a moment as the corners of her mouth hooked up into an arc that seemed like a smile that wasn't a smile. You wanted to control my body countless times, wanted to turn me into your puppet countless times. The array this time, I'm afraid it's also for the sake of allowing me to comprehend the true meaning of the Profound Jade Heart, to be used by you. That sinister and treacherous voice, after hearing Yiqing Luo's words, couldn't help but burst out laughing. That strange tone, when he laughed, there was a kind of hair-raising feeling. Young lady, you're really very smart. No wonder you're the person whom this seat has spent so much effort to obtain. That voice's tone became treacherous and eerily cold. What a pity. After entering this array before this seat achieves my motive, you absolutely will not be able to leave this place. That voice sneered. I wonder if those brothers of yours outside will be able to support you. Out of this array. Yiqing Luo's brows sunk slightly. Her gaze turned chilly and the temperature also turned chilly. I've said before that sentence of yours, I'll return it to you word for word. Don't be too confident. Dear, this chapter has ended. I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Chapter 4566. That voice was indifferent. Young lady, you can't even find where I am and you're still trying to leave the array? That person's words had just ended. Suddenly the voice stopped abruptly. A piercingly cold murderous intent filled the sky and earth. A loud bam sound was heard. A black-robed figure was sent flying and fell to the ground. That black-robed man suddenly flipped over and leapt up from the ground. Turning his head back, he met with a pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes, black to the extreme like a deep pool filled with icy cold murderous intent. Diamo Xian. Black-robed man's hoarse voice spat out 3 words while gritting his teeth. That voice was sharp and piercing. The purple-robed man slowly landed next to Yiqing Luo. His magnificent looks looked down on all living beings. His long arms stretched out and pulled the young lady into his embrace. The elegant sandalwood scent and the man's warmth made Yiqing Luo's body and mind calm down. Sorry I'm late. The man's low and hoarse voice was mellow like fine wine. She could faintly hear the hoarseness in his voice. Yiqing Luo buried her head in his embrace as her little face rubbed against his chest. Not late, just in time to clarify the matter. She knew that Diamo Xian would try his best to find her. Even if the person behind the scenes from the Nether Palace had schemed to separate her and Diamo Xian. But between the profound Phoenix Ring and the profound Dragon Ring, there was an obvious connection. This meant that she and Diamo Xian were still in the same space. And they weren't too far away. Based on Diamo Xian's ability, seeing through the illusion and finding her was just a matter of time. Diamo Xian's brows sunk slightly as his chilly gaze shot towards the black-robed man not too far away, the person behind the scenes from the Nether Palace. Yiqing Luo popped out her little head and looked at the black-robed man. It shouldn't be his original body. This was an array set up by the Nether Palace. It belonged to an illusion space. Appearing here. Other than the 2 of them who entered the array were real people. The rest should be an illusion that was created. And this black-robed man in front of them. He should belong to the person behind the scenes from the Nether Palace. A strand of soul. That was why the mastermind of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness had cut off his arm without hesitation. At most, it would only affect the minds of the people behind the scenes of the Dark Palace a little. Smart. The person behind the scenes of the Gloomy Palace sneered. The person who was shrouded in a black mist of evil energy could not be seen at all. Yiqing Luo moved her finger. A feather fan slid out. She gently swayed, and the corners of her mouth rose into a cold arc. I also know that this wisp of divine sense of yours is the key to breaking the formation. The laughter of the person behind the Palace of Darkness froze. Immediately after, the body shrouded by the sinister aura suddenly leaped into the crack in the space. Yiqing Luo and Diamo Xian exchanged glances. The corners of his lips curled up. Immediately after, they leaped up and followed closely behind the figure covered in black fog. She was just saying it casually. The reaction of the person behind the Palace of Darkness gave her an accurate answer. Diamo Xian had already blocked in front of that black-robed man. The black-robed man wanted to retreat. But his path of retreat was blocked by Yiqing Luo. But moments later they were already in a mess. In this array, the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness was merely a strand of divine sense. Before he could withdraw, he was restrained by Diamo Xian. How could he be Diamo Xian's opponent? But after a few rounds, the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness was already stepped on by Diamo Xian. The black robe which was shrouded around him fell onto the ground. However, the evil yin qi that lingered around that person's body was wrapped up tightly, making it impossible to see the person's face. End of this chapter. Chapter 4567. Yiqing Luo walked up as she squinted her eyes, trying to wave away the sinister qi. But Diamo Xian grabbed her hand. Don't touch. Yiqing Luo stared at that person. I'm curious, does this sinister rat look like a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks? Young lady, this is just the beginning. You'd better pray that you will never understand the true meaning of the profound jade heart. The person behind the scenes of the Nether Palace said coldly. Under the thick black fog, she could vaguely feel a sharp gaze falling on her body. Apparently, the person behind the scenes was warning her. The moment she understood the true meaning of the profound jade heart, that was when he appeared. Yiqing Luo smiled. Don't worry, when I understand the true meaning of the profound jade heart, you will not have the chance to get close to me. The person behind the scenes of the Nether Palace sneered. That foot which was stepping on her chest increased its strength as a warning to Yiqing Luo. The person behind the scenes laughed as he started coughing violently. Hope you can continue to maintain this confidence. We shall see. As the cold voice of the person behind the scenes from the Palace of Darkness fell, the thick black yin qi around him abruptly bared its fangs and brandished its claws towards Diamo Xian's legs to twine around. Diamo Xian's eyes sunk as he quickly retracted his leg. Grabbing the young lady's slender waist, he leapt up. The sinister qi spread out in this shattered space. The dense black qi brought along a treacherous eeriness. Was this gap? The person behind the scenes of the Nether Palace suddenly plunged towards the shattered pieces not too far away. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as a glint flashed past her eyes. Her fingertips flicked. The alluring red glow turned into a flowing light as it chased after the figure which had disappeared. Ah! A miserable shriek rang. The surrounding shattered space suddenly shook. The shattered pieces started to disintegrate. Sinister rat is just a sinister rat, trying to escape with your tail between your legs? The young lady's voice was arrogant and disdainful as she slowly kept her glower flame fan. Earlier when that person made use of the sinister qi to create trouble, she made use of the glower flame fan's energy to lock onto that person. If that person wanted to escape, the glower flame fan's energy would also chase after him. As the space fragment disintegrated, a ray of sunlight gradually appeared. It also revealed the surrounding desolate ruins. The formation was broken. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and gazed not too far away, towards the direction where the profound rays were spreading. They should be over there. Diamo Xian held her in his arms and flew towards that direction. A great battle ensued. Yan Shaoyi and the rest were all wounded. The Huangfu clan's troops obeyed Huangfu Dongyu's orders and continued to attack. The four of them fought side by side. A bunch of useless trash. Ren Jianying raised her head arrogantly and looked coldly at the four people who were covered in blood. It was hard to tell if they were themselves or someone else. Then he leaped up and slashed at the four of them with his sword. The majestic profound light was accompanied by a sharp chill. Her target was Qiao Jin. Amidst the sharp profound light, there was also a dark aura that made one's hair stand on end. In the instant that he attacked Qiao Jin, the dark aura bared its fangs and brandished its claws, clawing at Qiao Jin's face. Be careful. Yan Shaoyi raised the blade of the black scythe and slashed out two black profound rays. Her body speedily dashed towards Qiao Jin. Her petite body blocked in front of Qiao Jin. Bam! The two profound rays were totally unable to stop Ren Jianying's attack. The profound rays landed. It fell straight onto Yan Shaoyi's chest. A gush of blood instantly spurted out. The young lady's soft body crashed into Qiao Jin's arms. Chapter 4568. Shaoyi. Qiao Jin hugged the girl's slender body and roared out her name. Bright red blood dyed their robes red. The girl's pale lips were also stained with blood. A dark light flashed past Qiao Jin's eyes as he glared at Ren Jianying. Ren Jianying smirked, her face filled with viciousness and arrogance. I wanted to leave it to them, but the Huangfu family is all trash. I don't have so much time to waste here. She waved the sword in her hand. The dark light merged with the dark evil energy, like a poisonous snake sticking out its scarlet tongue, making one shudder. On the other side, Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Fengyan, who were called trash by Ren Jianying, stared at Ren Jianying with ugly expressions. They felt indignant. But they didn't dare to retort. Ren Jianying glanced at Yan Shaoyi in disdain and smirked. Do you want to die together for love? I can grant you your wish. She leaped, the sword in her hand stirring up waves of wind. Boundless dark energy pressed forward like a hot knife through butter. Qiao Jin hugged Yan Shaoyi and stood there motionlessly. His head was lowered and his expression couldn't be seen clearly. They could only feel the anger emanating from his body. Ren Jianying sneered and didn't think much of it. The sword fell and the sword waves surged. The dark waves turned into turbulent waves and crashed down. Qiao Jin. Huangfu Xing wanted to rush forward and block this move for them. However, the Huangfu family's men had him and Gu Zishi locked down. The moment they moved, they were blocked by countless men. Bang! Ren Jianying's sword wave fell. The earth shook. Crushed stones flew and endless dark light seemed to be able to devour everything around it. The surging sword wave was like a tide. The violent attack engulfed everything in its surroundings. Qiao Jin's figure carrying Yan Xiaoyi was instantly hidden between the sword wave and the dark light. Ha, weak. Ren Jianying snorted in disdain. Qiao Jin. Jing. Not far away, Long Yunjian and the rest who rushed over saw this scene. Their eyes were bloodshot as they stared in disbelief at the scene before them being devoured by the dark aura and dark aura. When they sensed this scene, they were stunned. He rushed over as fast as he could. But he still didn't make it in time. Each and every one of them stood rooted to the ground, staring blankly at the scene before them. The tyrannical profound radiance and evil chi formed a black vortex in midair. The surrounding air and the tumbling gravel were all quickly swept towards the vortex. Long Yunjian's eyes were so blue that they were deep, like the surface of a lake, causing layers of huge waves. I'll go save them. Long Yunjian's 5 fingers clenched tightly, unable to believe everything that he saw before his eyes. With a leap, he rushed towards the direction where Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi were being swallowed. Leader. Tong Ziqing hurriedly pulled him back and said with a trembling voice, "Don't be impulsive. Jin Zi and Xiaoyi wouldn't want to see you get hurt because of them." No one could determine just what kind of danger was hidden in the depths of that vortex. If they were to rush over there, not only would they not be able to save them, they might even lose their lives. Don't tell me we're just going to stand by and watch? Long Yunjian's eyes were filled with raging waves. His eyes were bloodshot red. Wait. Tong Ziqing suddenly saw something. Leader, look over there. The few of them looked in the direction of Tong Ziqing. Chapter 45-69. Vaguely, 2 figures could be seen, faintly discernible. Immediately after, the dazzling golden light was like a sharp blade that quickly sliced apart the vortex. Evil energy surged. But as the golden light spread, everywhere it went, it was covered by the golden light. As the golden light became brighter, those 2 figures became more and more obvious. It's Qiao Jin. Huang Fusheng's eyes widened, exclaiming in joy. Under that majestic dark light, the faintly discernible figure, wasn't it Qiao Jin, and Yan Xiaoyi in his arms? The 2 of them were fine. A dazzling golden light. It enveloped the 2 of them. They were completely protected within it. No matter how the sword waves surged, no matter how the vortex tsunami, no matter how close they were to the 2 of them, this scene caused Ren Jianying's expression to darken. Her eyes were sinister as she glanced at the 2 of them, who were unharmed. The long sword waved rapidly. Once again she launched a brutal attack. The long sword fell. The shocking dark wave rolled like a tide. Like a bolt of lightning, unstoppable. Bang! Vaguely, Qiao Jin, who was under the golden light, slowly raised a hand. When the dark light collided, the entire space shook. But the person under the golden light did not move at all. The vortex, under the pressure of the golden light, gradually dissipated. The man who was hugging the woman in his arms, slowly raised his head. That pair of golden eyes, which were so golden that they were without any impurities, was ice cold. Golden eyes, the power of the Huangfu family. Ren Jianying's heart moved, her face revealing a rare panic. The Huangfu family, the purest golden eyes. They were simply the nightmare of the entire heavenly realm. People who possessed golden eyes, their strength could be called Tai. This Qiao Jin. He was actually from the Huangfu family, a person with such pure golden eyes. Can't be left alive. This person definitely can't be left alive. Ren Jianying suppressed the anger and restlessness in her heart. The sword light flipped, once again launching an even more fierce attack. When she attacked, her killing intent was awe-inspiring. Go. Long Yunjian recovered from his surprise, seeing Ren Jianying's successive attacks becoming increasingly fierce. He immediately leaped up, charging towards Ren Jianying. Qiao Jin hugged the person in his arms tightly. He protected her tightly. He wouldn't let her get hurt in the slightest. His golden eyes reflected the girl's beautiful face. It was as if he was relying on his body's instincts to counterattack and attack. The only thought in his mind was to protect the person in his arms, protect her. I can't let her get hurt again. Ren Jianying's eyes darkened, and she looked at Long Yunjian, who was not far away. She stepped back. He fiercely pulled Huangfu Fengyan over and threw her in Qiao Jin's direction. You guys actually didn't tell me that he is the true successor of the Huangfu clan. This is your Huangfu family's matter, you can settle it yourselves. Huangfu Fengyan had yet to react. He had already been thrown in front of Qiao Jin. When she met Qiao Jin's emotionless and pure golden eyes, her body went limp and she screamed. He turned around intending to flee. Qiao Jin stretched out his arm and grabbed onto Huangfu Fengyan's shoulder. His 5 fingers turned into eagle claws and directly pierced into Huangfu Fengyan's body. Fresh blood instantly dyed his hand red. Viscous blood dripped down. Qiao Jin seemed as if he didn't realize just how crazy his actions were. Just as he was about to directly pierce through her heart, the person in his arms. Her fair little hands weakly grabbed onto Qiao Jin's wrist. It was just a light touch. Chapter 4570. Shall we? Qiao Jin's eyes were filled with joy and worry as he lowered his head to look at the person in his arms. How are you? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Yan Shaoyi took a deep breath and smiled at him with difficulty. Don't let the dirty blood stain you. Qiao Jin's eyes widened. The person in his arms was smiling with great difficulty, but she still managed to maintain the smile on her face. Yan Shaoyi's breathing paused as she shut her eyes tiredly. Jin, I'm a little tired and want to rest for a while. Group leader and the rest are here and Qing Luo is also trying her best to find us. Be well, don't be stained by those dirty blood. Towards the end, Yan Shaoyi's voice was almost unable to speak. Only the sound of air was left. She could feel that Qiao Jin had been controlled and dominated by those golden eyes. Qiao Jin. Almost subconsciously he started a massacre. Especially when Huangfu Fengyan's blood spurted out. Qiao Jin's consciousness became increasingly chaotic. It was as if he was on the verge of exploding. This feeling made Yan Shaoyi extremely uneasy. Even though she was in Qiao Jin's embrace, even though her face was reflected in his eyes. But she felt that the distance between her and Qiao Jin was getting further and further apart. This was not the first time she had seen Qiao Jin's golden eyes, but it was the first time she had such a feeling. I can't let him touch blood again. He would be enchanted by the golden eyes and lose himself. Qiao Jin hugged her gently as his pair of pure golden eyes were suffused with a faint golden glow. Don't sleep. Shaoyi, don't sleep now, wait for Qing Luo to come then you can rest. He sounded a little panicked. The emptiness in his eyes had been replaced by anxiety. Hey, you're still flirting with each other? Huangfu Fengyan's eyes revealed an ominous glint that was filled with resentment. She covered the wound where blood was continuously seeping out and turned her hand into a sharp claw that was covered in a profound glow. Then she forcefully slashed towards Qiao Jin. She hated Qiao Jin. He hated this person with the purest golden eyes. But Qiao Jin's attention was always on Yan Shaoyi. Yan Shaoyi could no longer hear his shouts. Qiao Jin's heart became increasingly flustered as he called out Yan Shaoyi's name over and over again. The smile on Huangfu Fengyan's face twisted in excitement. His 5 fingers that resembled an eagle's claw emitted waves of profound light that grew even more intense. Jinzi. Long Yunzhan bellowed angrily, and he already arrived in front of Qiao Jin. He raised his hand and grabbed Huangfu Fengyan's wrist. Kacha. Huangfu Fengyan's face turned pale as she miserably screamed. Long Yunzhan's palm slapped onto Huangfu Fengyan's shoulder. He was sent flying. Huangfu Fengyan rolled on the ground a few times before she could support her broken hand, which was contorted in pain. Long Yunzhan grabbed Qiao Jin's arm as a trace of anger surfaced on his cold face. Jin Zi, what the hell are you doing? It was as though Qiao Jin could not hear his words. He just lowered his head and repeatedly called Yan Shaoyi's name. Long Yunzhan's lake-like eyes surged with great waves. Qiao Jin. His voice was deep and maddening. She placed her hands on Qiao Jin's shoulders and stared sternly into his pure golden eyes. Qiao Jin, do you know exactly why Shaoyi is lying in your embrace? Because she wants you to live. She doesn't want to see you get hurt. If you're killed, how are you going to protect her? Are you still worthy of her actions of sacrificing herself in order to protect you? Hurry up and read the latest updates. Chapter 4571. Long Yunzhan had always been solemn and cold. It was rare to see him in such an irritable mood. Qiao Jin's pupils constricted slightly. He slowly raised his head and looked at Long Yunzhan as he called out in a hoarse voice, Leader, it's fine as long as she wakes up. Don't disappoint Shaoyi. Long Yunzhan let go of his shoulder and looked down at the person in his arms. Shaoyi will only have time to heal after dealing with the matter in front of us. Qiao Jin replied in a hoarse voice as his golden eyes slowly looked around. The Huangfu family's troops all looked at Qiao Jin's golden eyes in shock. Their eyes were filled with uncontrollable reverence. As members of the Huangfu family they naturally knew. The person with the purest golden eyes was the successor of the Huangfu family, their future master. Even the current patriarch of the Huangfu family only had a pure golden eye. What are you guys still standing there for? Hurry up and attack. Huangfu Dongyu saw that the Huangfu family's troops had the intention to retreat and immediately roared. He had a sinister expression as he shouted, "Didn't you see that he injured fourth young mistress? He's just trash that was removed from the Huangfu family. What can a pair of golden eyes represent? Has he made any contributions to the Huangfu family?" No. The Huangfu family's troops turned their heads to look at young Master Huangfu with hesitant expressions. They also knew that Huangfu Dongyu's words were very true. However, the thoughts that were deeply ingrained in them since they were young, pure golden eyes were equivalent to the thoughts of their future master, couldn't be erased. Xiao Jing. They retreated. None of the troops dared to make a move. Huangfu Dongyu roared a few more times. His face was flushed with anger. He flicked his sleeves and was about to ask Huangfu Qifei what to do. However, Huangfu Qifei had unknowingly picked up Ren Jianying's long sword and leaped into the midst of the Huangfu family's troops. The long sword waved. The sword wave was like a surging tide. Ah! Screams rose and fell, resounding throughout the entire space. The Huangfu family's troops instantly turned into dismembered corpses under the sword wave. Blood splattered and flesh flew. It was a cruel and bloody scene. Huangfu Dongyu's face instantly turned pale, and his voice couldn't help but tremble. Third brother, what are you doing? Those who don't listen, just kill them." Huangfu Qifei raised the long sword in his hand with a gentle smile on his gentle face. But the words that came out of his mouth were so cold that it made people shiver. The Huangfu family doesn't raise disobedient dogs in case they bite us instead. Huangfu Dongyu shuddered and stared at Huangfu Qifei in disbelief. These were all old elites that had followed the Huangfu family for many years. Huangfu Qifei killed without hesitation. Didn't they think that the relatives of those who were killed were still waiting for their return in the Huangfu clan? Big brother, if you can't steal your heart, then leave it to me to decide. Huangfu Qifei stabbed his sword into the ground as the corners of his mouth curled into a warm and gentle smile. He looked around and saw that there were still more than 20 people from the Huangfu clan still alive. He smiled and asked, "May I ask everyone, which one do you want to choose?" That smile was bone-piercing cold. The Huangfu family's troops were all trembling from the sword aura just now. They only knew that Huangfu Qifei was the most gentle person in the Huangfu family, a graceful and elegant young master. But they never thought, only today did they know that the so-called gentleness was just a mask. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 4572. Immediately they trembled and expressed that they were definitely on their side. Huangfu Qifei's lips curled up in satisfaction as he gave the next order. "In order to show that all of you are sincerely following me, kill Huangfu Dongyu now." Third brother. Are you crazy? Huangfu Dongyu did not expect that Huangfu Qifei would actually have the intention to kill him. Huangfu Qifei smiled. "If I don't kill you, how can I legitimately become the master of the Huangfu family?" He glanced at Huangfu Fengyan, who was covered in blood on the ground with disgust, and pulled the corners of his lips. "To be honest, I've put up with all of you for a very long time. One is as dumb as a pig and still thinks that he's important all the time, as though everyone else is a fool. In reality, he's always being toyed with by others and is being used as a tool without knowing it. One is relying on his identity as the first young master of the Huangfu family and the fact that he's about to inherit the Huangfu family. He doesn't even think about us brothers and sisters." Huangfu Qifei scoffed. "There's no such thing as feelings in the four great families. You. Huangfu Dongyu's face was pale. He clenched his fists tightly and looked at the people of the Huangfu family who were originally following his orders warily. A ruthless glint appeared in his eyes. "I'm the first young master of the Huangfu family, the future successor of the Huangfu family. If all of you are still loyal to the Huangfu family, kill him now. He's killed so many people of the Huangfu family, so many elders who have been loyal to the Huangfu family for many years. He'll definitely kill all of you. All of you can only choose me now. Let's kill him together." However, no matter how he shouted, the people of the Huangfu family stood on Huangfu Qifei's side and approached him step by step. Huangfu Dongyu slowly retreated. The expression on his face became more and more panicked. On the other side, Ren Jianying's eyes were filled with disdain and mockery as she watched the scene of her brothers killing each other. She had only said a few words casually. She could easily provoke the ambition in Huangfu Qifei's heart. This feeling of controlling other people's lives was really great. She glanced at Xiao Jin and the others who had already gathered together, and the disdain on the corner of her lips became even more obvious. Suddenly, a violent explosion came from behind. Ren Jianying quickly turned around to look. The place where the palace master of secluded darkness palace was sitting exploded with profound waves. The ground collapsed into a huge black hole. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace knelt on one knee on the ground and stared blankly at the direction of the explosion. There seemed to be some kind of emotion surging in his eyes under the black robe. Lord Palace Master. Ren Jianying hurriedly jogged forward and put on a concerned expression. She stretched out her little hand to help the palace master of Gloomy Palace up. Her hand had yet to touch him. He raised his hand to stop her. He slowly stood up from the ground. A black robe cascaded down from the sky, covering everything about him. He didn't even look at Ren Jianying as he walked past her to the side of the black hole. His eyes stared blankly at the black hole. His thin lips trembled slightly. They have come out. What? Ren Jianying did not quite understand what he meant. However, the palace master of the Netherworld Palace ignored her. He slowly squatted down. The black robe fluttered. The profound wave swept over. In the black hole, a few fragments of the mirror fell into his palm. He kept the fragments, turned around and flew away. He didn't even leave a word behind. Ren Jianying, who was ignored, turned pale. She clenched her fists tightly and suppressed the indignation and anger in her heart. Chapter 4573. She was, after all, a beauty that all men would be attracted to. She was also very clear about what she looked like the most. What actions could attract men the most. However, this palace master of the secluded palace didn't have any thoughts about her at all. One day, she would make the palace master of the secluded palace bow down to her. Ren Jianying calmed herself down. Her gaze landed on the black hole below. She seemed to have seen. The palace master of the secluded palace took out the mirror fragment from the black hole. The palace master of the secluded palace sat there, staring at the mirror. The explosion just now was because the mirror broke? How could that mirror break? Xiao Jin hugged Yan Xiaoyi and stood there silently. Huang Fusheng and Gu Zishi supported each other and stood beside them. Looking at the front, the Huangfu family people surrounded Huangfu Dongyu. Gu Zishi sneered, "I knew that third young master Huangfu wasn't a good person, now he's showing his ambition." Huang Fusheng caressed Gu Zishi's hand and looked at Long Yunzhan. "Why don't we take this chance to go to the Huangfu family?" Xiao Jin's mother was still imprisoned in the Huangfu family. And the old man. Once Huangfu Qifei gained power. With Huangfu Qifei's ruthlessness, Huangfu Qifei would definitely kill old man Huangfu and Xiao Jin's mother. Long Yunzhan looked at Ren Jianying, his cold face emotionless. "You guys go first, Ziqing and I will deal with the Ren family people." Ren Jianying has cooperated with the secluded palace. Her current strength is far above us, you guys might not be her match. Huang Fusheng shook his head worriedly. "I will stop her, you guys go to the Huangfu family." "Don't talk nonsense, I told you to go." Long Yunzhan looked at him indifferently, then flew towards Ren Jianying's direction. "Wait. Look over there." Suddenly, Gu Zishi exclaimed. Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing paused. They looked towards Gu Zishi's direction. Huangfu Dongyu was still trying to use a bigger temptation to convince the Huangfu family people. However, the eyes of the Huangfu clan's group were filled with killing intent. One of the older elders looked at Huangfu Dongyu and said, "Eldest young master, in terms of strength and talent, you're indeed inferior to third young master. Handing the Huangfu clan over to third young master is the best choice. Eldest young master, just obediently accept your death. In the future, under the leadership of the third young master, the Huangfu family will once again ascend to the peak, and you will be able to obtain a good reputation." After the old man finished speaking, some of the younger people behind him chimed in. Huangfu Dongyu's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He glared at the people in front of him with hatred before glaring in Huangfu Qifei's direction. Are you going to betray the Huangfu clan? Aren't you letting down the Huangfu family's many years of nurturing by doing this? We're just doing this for the sake of the Huangfu family. The Huangfu family's troops swarmed forward. His killing intent was awe-inspiring. Huangfu Qifei stood high above, his gentle face still maintained a warm smile. "Big brother, don't struggle. I will soon send Huangfu Fengyan to accompany you. Your deaths will be the last thing I will do for the Huangfu clan." Facing the encirclement of over 20 people, Huangfu Dongyu didn't even have the chance to fight back. When the profound wave pressed down, he closed his eyes in despair. Chapter 4574. Suddenly, a gush of devilish glow burst out from Huangfu Dongyu's body. The 20 over people who were crowding around started to cry out in pain as they fell onto the ground. The dark glow flickered. A slender figure could be seen faintly. Under the devilish glow, her dress fluttered in the wind. Like an excited fire elite. Noble and disdainful, it made one feel an inexplicable chill. Huangfu Dongyu waited for a long time but didn't feel the pain that he had imagined. He cautiously opened his eyes. He saw a figure which almost dyed his eyes red standing in front of him. Her entire body seemed as though it was plated with a layer of pure holy light. His pupils suddenly constricted. His heart felt as though it was being strangled by something. Oh, who is it? Huangfu family's men fell onto the ground. Clutching their chests in pain, they started to climb up and shouted angrily. When their gazes saw that red-robed young lady, a sliver of panic flashed past their expressions. Gu, eldest young miss of Gu residence. It's eldest young miss of Gu residence. The crowd cried out that young lady's name. Eldest young miss of Gu residence. Yiqing Luo? When Huangfu Dongyu heard this name he was stunned. Yiqing Luo would save him? Yiqing Luo would actually save him? No. This was impossible. How could the lady in front of him be Yiqing Luo? Huangfu Dongyu staggered up from the ground as he looked at the young lady in front of him in a daze. Until he saw the young lady's face clearly. He then believed. The person in front of him was Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo stood elegantly in front of Huangfu Dongyu. The expression on her face was indifferent without any extra emotions. A pair of long and narrow eyes casually swept across the group of people from the Huangfu clan, and the corner of her mouth curled into a cold arc that seemed to be a smile that wasn't a smile. Yiqing Luo. Huangfu Qifei saw the person who suddenly appeared and his expression sunk. You? How did you? Didn't Patriarch Rin say? Yiqing Luo had already fallen into the array which she had set up long ago, and also vowed that even if the Overlord was around, Yiqing Luo would absolutely not be able to escape from the array? What? Did Yiqing Luo coincidentally appear here? In the face of Huangfu Qifei's doubtful and interrogative gaze. Ren Jining was also shocked. Her eyes widened as she looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. The expression on his face alternated between green and red. He suddenly thought of the scene where the palace master of the gloomy palace's mirror cracked and he left in anger. Could it be that? When the mirror surface cracked, it represented that the array had been broken by Yiqing Luo? Ren Jianing's face darkened, and her eyes were filled with hostility. The palace of gloomy darkness was also unreliable. She really thought that it was foolproof. Unexpectedly, how long had he trapped Yiqing Luo for? The array was broken by Yiqing Luo. Ren Jianing clenched her slender fingers, and her eyes were filled with venom. Amidst the brilliance, she kept searching for ways to kill Yiqing Luo in her mind. As for me, what I hate the most are disloyal dogs. The girl's lazy voice sounded leisurely. Her brows raised slightly as she glanced indifferently at the Huangfu family's direction. Following that, her gaze fell onto the astonished Huangfu Dongyu. Don't misunderstand, I don't want to help you. I just don't see eye to eye with them, so I conveniently took action. Huangfu Dongyu stared blankly at the young lady's exquisite face. Your gaze is rather disgusting if you keep looking. Don't blame me for digging your eyes out. Yiqing Luo said coldly. End of this chapter. Chapter 4575. This baby was a married woman. Especially her husband, he was a huge vinegar jar. Being stared at by Huangfu Dongyu. He was jealous to the extent of being unreasonable. Huangfu Dongyu's eyes flashed as he swiftly shifted his gaze away, stammering, no matter what, I still have to thank you. No need. Yiqing Luo waved her hand, not even glancing at him from the corner of her eyes as she walked past him, striding towards the direction of Long Yunzhan and the others. Huangfu Dongyu was still in a daze. This feeling of escaping from death made him feel a sense of exhaustion from being overly anxious. But the surrounding Huangfu family's men made him forcibly hold on to his willpower, tensing up his emotions as he stood there. Yiqing Luo walked to the side of Long Yunzhan and the others who were similarly in a daze. Qiao Jin was the first to react. He carried Yan Xiaoyi as he rushed to Yiqing Luo. Qing Luo, earlier Xiaoyi helped me to block a strike. Take a look at her injuries. Has the profound yin qi entered her body? His tone was filled with anxiety. Yiqing Luo took a look at the person in his arms. The lady's delicate face was pale. Even his lips did not have the slightest trace of blood. But the lady's brows were flat without any wrinkles. Yiqing Luo comforted, there shouldn't be any profound yin qi. She held Yan Xiaoyi's wrist, lay Xiaoyi flat on the ground first. Xiao Jin did as he was told. Yiqing Luo took Yan Xiaoyi's pulse. Don't worry, she only suffered some internal injuries and will recover after some recuperation. Feed her a medicinal pill first. Yiqing Luo took out a medicinal bottle from the profound phoenix ring. With Yiqing Luo's words, Xiao Jin's creased brows finally eased up a little. He heaved a sigh of relief as he received the medicinal bottle in a flurry. His hand which was holding the medicinal pill was still trembling. Qing Luo, are you all right? Where's the overlord? Gu Zishi and Tong Ziqing spoke in unison as they welcomed her, their faces filled with concern. What can happen to me? It's just a trick that the secluded palace often plays. Yiqing Luo smiled at the both of them. Earlier when we rushed over, we discovered another wave of energy. After leaving this mountain, he chased up to check out the situation. According to her analysis, the wave of power that left, they should be from the dark nether palace. The consciousness of the person behind the gloomy palace could enter the formation. This meant that the person was nearby. So Dmo Xian followed the source of the energy and chased after it. If the power that left was really the mastermind behind the dark nether palace, he would tell her through the netherworld phoenix ring and the netherworld dragon ring. The few of them chatted as if they were strolling around the lake. He was very relaxed and indifferent. He completely disregarded the blood that filled the sky. Ren Jianying stared at Yiqing Luo with a gaze filled with venom and unwillingness. Yiqing Luo knew her secret. She absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo live. A vicious light flashed in her eyes as she shouted fiercely, Huangfu Qifei, what are you still standing there for? Kill her while Dizun is not here. The commanding tone caused Huangfu Qifei's brows to knit together slightly. But it was only for a moment. He lowered his eyelids as his voice was gentle. Patriarch Ren, if I kill her and the overlord blames me, what should I do? Aren't there 2 ready-made scapegoats over there? What are you afraid of? Based on your intellect, pushing Yiqing Luo's death onto them isn't difficult, right? Ren Jianying's voice became deeper and more venomous. If you don't take action now, you won't have this chance anymore. Huangfu Qifei's expression didn't change as his lips curled upwards as he smiled warmly. Patriarch Ren, on this mountain, everyone is my Huangfu family's men, and Patriarch Ren, you are alone. End of this chapter. Chapter 4576. Ren Jianying's expression changed. What do you mean? Huangfu Qifei's smile didn't diminish in the slightest. Patriarch Ren is extremely intelligent. How could you not understand what I mean? Huangfu Qifei, how ambitious of you. Ren Jianying stared at Huangfu Qifei with a mocking sneer on her gorgeous face. He seemed to be ridiculing Huangfu Qifei's audacity. Huangfu Qifei only thought that she was struggling on her deathbed. When it comes to ambition, we are about the same. Isn't everything we've done just to fulfill our ambitions? Ren Jianying raised her head slightly, revealing her fair neck. Do you think you can be my opponent? I might not be your match, but I am the one with the advantage in numbers. Huangfu Qifei walked slowly towards Ren Jianying. Patriarch Ren, if you're able to be obedient, then the cooperation between us can still continue. Ren Jianying did not avoid it. He stood there with a faint smile on his face. His face was filled with arrogance, as if expressing extreme disdain towards Huangfu Qifei's words. Third young master Huangfu, no matter what you do, don't be too absolute. It's good that you're confident, but sometimes it can easily turn into conceit. Huangfu Qifei's footsteps slightly stopped on the spot. The two looked at each other. The space between the two seemed to be surging with some kind of turbulent waves. It was like a surging tide. Not far away, Xiao Jin glanced at Huangfu Dongyu. Why did you save him? If he's dead, he's dead. Yiqing Luo raised her lower lip. This third brother of yours is really conceited. He's not my brother. Xiao Jin's face turned cold and he looked at Huangfu Qifei with disdain. He thinks that he is talented and strong, but in reality, he doesn't have anything worth showing off. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. So, leaving Huangfu Dongyu alive and letting them fight amongst themselves, isn't that better? She really didn't want to ridicule Huangfu Qifei. He could only say, there was a hole in Huangfu Qifei's brain. Under such circumstances, he actually still had the mood to cause internal strife. After fighting with Huangfu Dongyu, he went to fight with Ren Jianying. Did he really think of himself as a god? If it was her. Even if he was ambitious, she wouldn't show it now. At the very least, they should have waited until they were united against the foreign enemies and dealt with the first wave of enemies before slowly starting their internal strife. Now there was internal strife at the slightest disagreement. After they were done killing each other, she had already slipped away with a bunch of brothers. Okay? There must be a hole in his brain. She spared Huangfu Dongyu's life. After Huangfu Dongyu found out about Huangfu Qifei's true identity, coupled with the thrilling escape from death just now, presumably he would retaliate against Huangfu Qifei. And now, Huangfu Qifei courted death by arguing with Ren Jianying. Given Ren Jianying's personality, she would probably teach him a lesson at any moment. Tiske, what a great show. They should just sit back and watch the crowd. Everything was as Yiqing Luo had expected. Ren Jianying was indeed teaching Huangfu Qifei how to behave in a matter of minutes. Huangfu Qifei's awe-inspiring display didn't last more than 3 seconds before he was already held between Ren Jianying's 5 fingers. A dagger slid across Huangfu Qifei's neck. It scared Huangfu Qifei so much that his face turned pale, totally unable to maintain his gentleness. Ren Jianying sneered as her lips curled up. Now, are you going to listen to me obediently or am I going to listen to you obediently? Huangfu Qifei's neck felt a piercing pain and he could feel blood oozing out. Chapter 4577. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she spat out a word in disdain, coward. Huangfu Qifei's begging words came to a halt. His pale face was stained with a shade of red. It was a flush of embarrassment and anger. He stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. But he was restrained by Ren Jianying's hand. The show was pressed against his neck, there wasn't much deterrence. Ren Jianying didn't look at Yiqing Luo as she arrogantly curled her lips and looked at Huangfu Qifei, shaking her head. Not the Ren family, it's me, Ren Jianying. Huangfu Qifei's pupils shook violently. He naturally understood Ren Jianying's meaning. Not the Ren family. It was her, Ren Jianying. Which meant? Ren Jianying's ambition was much bigger than what he had imagined. Ren Jianying wasn't doing this for the Ren family. She had a bigger target. Thinking of earlier, he had not even made a move and was already subdued by Ren Jianying. His heart skipped a beat. Yes, the Huangfu family will definitely follow eldest Missy Ren's lead. Huangfu Qifei was indeed an intelligent man. At this moment he had made his choice very clearly. What ambition, what unyielding character. None of them were as important as his life. Ren Jianying wasn't afraid that Huangfu Qifei would betray her as she directly threw him aside. Casually, she threw the show onto the ground. The show was thrown on the ground. The gaze she shot towards Huangfu Qifei was filled with disdain. Do you know what to do? Huangfu Qifei held onto his bleeding neck as he stood up with a pale face. Yes. Huangfu Qifei held onto his bleeding neck as he stood up with a pale face. Yes. This time he had no chance to retreat. He was utterly defeated. Huangfu Qifei took a deep breath. He turned his gaze towards the crowd, Yiqing Luo and the rest. He pursed his thin lips as he lifted his feet and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. He didn't know if it was an illusion. The moment he moved, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. It was as though a strange, indescribable smile had appeared on Ren Jianying's face. As though she was plotting something. Huangfu Qifei felt a chill down his spine. Looking at Yiqing Luo's direction, he suddenly felt as if he had stepped into the path of hell. Huangfu Dongyu. Suddenly, the girl opposite him shouted at the top of her lungs. Immediately, the noisy space quietened down. Huangfu Dongyu looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. Yiqing Luo waved at him and pointed at Huangfu Qifei. The main culprit who wanted to kill you is right here, don't you intend to take revenge? Everyone, it turned out that she had saved Huangfu Dongyu. Just to let Huangfu Dongyu restrain Huangfu Qifei? Alright, this move was indeed ruthless. It was indeed very practical. Because after Yiqing Luo hauled out, Huangfu Dongyu sprinted over. He seemed as if he wanted to take Huangfu Qifei down with him. Yiqing Luo turned her head towards Qiao Jin and winked at him. See that, the reason why I saved him. Qiao Jin. Just say it directly if you're lazy, stop finding excuses. Yiqing Luo's fingertips brushed past the azure aqua ring on her hand. A wisp of red light shot out from her fingertip. The faint light encircled Yan Xiaoyi and the rest, and after one round, she curled her lips. I'm going to play with eldest Miss Ren, just take care of yourselves. She was just about to move. Long Yunzhan pulled her arm. That Ren Jianying doesn't look right, I'll go with you. The young man's expressionless face had a pair of azure blue eyes, but it was filled with concern. Dear, this chapter has ended, I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Chapter 4578. She smiled and placed his hand into Tong Ziqing's. Just take good care of Ziqing, I'm just going over to play. Saying that, she flew towards Ren Jianying's direction. But she discovered that Ren Jianying was speedily retreating backwards. The gaze which she shot towards her was filled with gloating over her misfortune. Ren Jianying's speed was extremely fast. In just a blink of an eye, she had already left this mountain. Her speed was so fast as though there was some kind of dreadful beast in this mountain. Yiqing Luo's footsteps paused. Her heart inexplicably surged with an ominous premonition. Thinking of earlier, Ren Jianying revealed a strange smile. Her heart thumped furiously. Not good. Everyone leave quickly. She shouted loudly as she turned her head back and shouted at the brothers behind her. Just as she turned around. Just a breath's time. Suddenly, a deafening roar resounded in his ears. Bam! Rumble. The earth quaked and the mountains shook violently, forming a huge whirlpool. The booming sound almost engulfed everyone on the mountain range. Huangfu family's men immediately cried out miserably. All of them wanted to avoid the earth quaking and the mountains shaking. But just as they were about to move, they were crushed to death by the huge rocks which swarmed downwards. Large pieces of gravel and rocks tumbled down with a crackling sound. This collapsing feeling was totally different from the feeling of falling into the array earlier. It was the surrounding space which had started to shatter. As though it could destroy the heaven and earth, a huge energy swept across the entire heaven and earth. Yiqing Luo's face turned slightly pale as she speedily released the God Relic's energy to consolidate the barrier which she had set up for Yan Xiaoyi and the others. She stretched out her hand to pull Long Yunzhan. Ah Zhan. Let's go first. This place had been a trap right from the start. Ren Jianying was planning to let all of them die here. First, she used the secluded palace's array to trap her and Dmo Xian in the array. Then she lured Huangfu Sheng, Qiao Jin and the others to this mountain peak. When the right time was right, she would bury all of them in the mountain peak in one fell swoop. This was the forbidden art of space destruction. Ren Jianying wanted to destroy this place. If they continued to stay here, they would all be destroyed by these vortexes. He did not expect Ren Jianying to use such a sinister method. Yiqing Luo tugged on Long Yunzhan's hand but was unable to move him. She frowned and looked at Long Yunzhan. Zhan? She tugged at Long Yunzhan again. However, Long Yunzhan stood there stiffly, not moving at all. A pair of azure lake-like eyes stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. There were ripples in his eyes, but it was impossible to see what he was feeling. Yiqing Luo felt a little strange but didn't think too much about it. He just passed Long Yunzhan's hand to Tong Ziqing's. He then squinted his eyes and turned around to look at the sky full of flying sand, giant rocks rolling down, and the space being swallowed by the whirlpool. Ziqing, take Zhan and leave. Qing Luo, be careful. Before she could finish her sentence, he was interrupted by Tong Ziqing's hurried and frightened voice. Yiqing Luo acutely sensed a fierce murderous intent coming from her back. She frowned and quickly tried to dodge. Before he could turn his head, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. The sharp blade directly pierced into her body. She gave a dull moan and as her 5 fingers moved, the glower flame fan opened up and speedily drew out a demonic profound ray, striking fiercely towards the direction where the murderous intent came from. However, when she turned around and saw the silhouette clearly, she was stunned. Her hand movements suddenly stopped. Her profound energy was also restrained. She looked at the person in front of her in disbelief. Chapter 45-79. A youth with black hair and blue eyes held a sharp longsword in his hand. On the blade of the sword, fresh blood dripped down drop by drop. He stood there, looking at her expressionlessly. Between his brows, there was an icy coldness. Yiqing Luo stopped her attack as her body swayed slightly. Blood seeped out of her shoulder. She felt a sharp pain when she moved, causing her facial features to wrinkle slightly. Leader. Tong Ziqing hugged Long Yunzhan's arm, her eyes filled with disbelief. What are you doing? She saw it with her own eyes. At the instant when Yiqing Luo turned around, Long Yunzhan picked up his weapon and stabbed towards her back. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo managed to dodge in time, that sword would probably pierce through Yiqing Luo's heart. How could Long Yunzhan possibly make a move on Yiqing Luo? What was going on? Tong Ziqing's mind was in a mess. She held Long Yunzhan's hand tightly and shouted his name loudly. However, in the next instant, Long Yunzhan just waved his arm expressionlessly. He threw Tong Ziqing out. He brandished his long sword once again, chopping down horizontally towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's shoulders were still throbbing in pain. The deafening vibrations and the violent shaking continued. An endless whirlpool. It was already expanding. It was as if it was going to swallow everything in this space. She couldn't avoid it. He couldn't avoid it either. Yiqing Luo's breathing was tight, her pale face was dripping with sweat. Just as Long Yunzhan's sword wave arrived, a warm and large palm clasped her shoulder. The next moment, her waist tightened. She was pulled into a warm embrace. That kind of warmth was different from Diamo Xian. However, it made her feel inexplicably at ease. In her ears she could vaguely hear the man's deep voice. "This place is about to be devoured. Let's leave first." The dizziness from the blood loss made Yiqing Luo a little dizzy. She clutched the man's robe tightly and said with difficulty, "No. And them, I don't care so much." The man ignored Yiqing Luo's words. He picked up the person and flew away. By the time Yiqing Luo regained consciousness, she was in one of the darker rooms. The room was shabby and built with thatch, but the mattress she was sleeping on was of the best quality, soft and comfortable. Yiqing Luo surveyed her surroundings and wanted to get up. However, the sharp pain from her shoulder caused her face to instantly turn pale. It was as if something was tearing at her flesh. What was going on? Yiqing Luo panted heavily as she laid back on the bed, not daring to move. She was not a delicate person. But this kind of pain, even she was somewhat unable to endure it, so one could imagine exactly how painful this kind of pain was. She closed her eyes and tried to calm herself down. Right now, she should have already left that mountain range. It was the man who suddenly appeared and took her away from there. But what about her brothers? Yiqing Luo's breathing congealed as waves of dull pain came from her chest, making her unable to maintain her composure to think. Perhaps he heard the commotion in the room. The tightly shut door was pushed open. A ray of light spilled into the room. A long shadow was cast down. The elongated shadow happened to be imprinted on Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo slowly moved her head and shifted her gaze towards that side. She saw the man standing against the light. His tall and straight figure was dressed in a black robe and his face was handsome. That pair of eyes which didn't show any emotions faintly floated with light. Yiqing Luo's pupils shrank slightly. Chapter 4580. You. She opened her mouth, her voice was hoarse and a little painful. The man strode over, half squatted by the bedside, poured a cup of warm water and carefully fed it into her mouth. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she looked at him in a daze. Her throat swallowed the water spontaneously. A cup of warm water entered her stomach. Her throat finally cleared up a lot. She coughed, causing the wound on her shoulder to hurt. She stared intently at the man in front of her. "Why are you here?" "To save you." The man sat next to her and replied calmly. "What do you mean?" Yiqing Luo frowned. "You specially came to save me?" How could he be so sure that she would be injured? And what's more, he coincidentally appeared here. Facing Yiqing Luo's suspicion, the man's expression didn't fluctuate. "I heard their plan in the secluded palace, so I rushed over." He paused. "I made it in time and saved you." Yiqing Luo's pink lips tightly pursed into a straight line. "After you brought me to the heaven realm, you threw your hands away and left. Now you dare to stand in front of me. You must feel that I'm injured now and can't do anything to you, right?" "Yes." The man in front of her was the one who brought her to the heaven realm, Blood-Bone Barbaric King. Facing the Blood-Bone Barbaric King, Yiqing Luo's feelings were very complicated. She didn't know what attitude she should use to face him. In the Earth realm, she and the Blood-Bone Barbaric King could be considered as enemies. After all, he was the mastermind behind the Linglong Palace. And without any explanation, he kidnapped her to the heaven realm. Although, after knowing her real identity, he had never had any thoughts of hurting her. Plus, later on, she knew the deepest secret in his memory. Knew that he had such deep feelings for the Emperor of God Emperors, which was also her biological mother. Knew that in order to protect her in Feng Ji's womb, he had sacrificed everything. Knew that he had risked his life to protect her until he was sealed. And still wanted to protect her. Yiqing Luo really couldn't hate the Blood-Bone Barbaric King, nor could she blame him. "I have something urgent to deal with," the Blood-Bone Barbaric King explained dryly. Yiqing Luo sneered. "In a hurry to deal with me with the secluded palace?" "No." The barbaric Blood-Bone King shook his head. After meeting Yiqing Luo's burning gaze, he slowly shifted his vision away. As though he was looking at Yiqing Luo's face. He would recall the shadow of the person buried in the deepest part of his memory. The palace of gloomy darkness lied to me. He pursed his lips, lowered his head and apologized. I'm sorry. Because of me you told the palace of darkness the secret of your divine phoenix profound heart jade and the secret that Fenggu left on you. If it weren't for him, the entire heaven realm would not treat Yiqing Luo as a prey. Yiqing Luo wouldn't have met with such a situation. I can understand that you know the secret of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, but why do you say, the clue to my mother's grave is with me? Yiqing Luo had always been puzzled by this question. The barbaric Bloodbone King raised his eyebrows slightly. You still don't know? Yiqing Luo expressed her doubts. The barbaric Bloodbone King's eyes darkened and he asked tentatively, have you ever seen a piece of skin that looks like paper with a very complicated topographic map drawn on it? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes and was even more puzzled. What topographic map? The barbaric Bloodbone King looked at Yiqing Luo for some time and shook his head. Nothing, I misunderstood. He lowered his brows slightly, but I'm afraid the entire upper realm will not believe that you don't know about the so-called profound flame Tianshu diagram. Chapter 4581. It was indeed the Tianshu map. Yiqing Luo's heart skipped a beat. But she didn't show any unusual expression on her face. Even if she knew the barbaric Blood King's feelings for Fenggu, she also believed that the barbaric Blood King had no ill intentions towards her. But the Tianshu map was related to too many complicated things. Xian had said this before. No matter who it was, they had to keep the secret of the Tianshu map. Even if it was the barbaric Blood King, she didn't intend to say it out. But what she didn't expect was that her mother from Three Springs sect left her the map that Yi Tianquang had been longing for. It was the topographic map of the Divine Emperor's tomb. No wonder she and Old Man Song felt that the map was too complicated. How could the map of the Divine Emperor's tomb not be complicated? Her mind was in turmoil. Yiqing Luo's face was filled with confusion. What is the Tianshu map? That is the map to the Divine Emperor's tomb, and also an analysis of the interior of the tomb. The barbaric Blood King explained, I thought that Fenggu would have arranged everything before she passed away. Mother has already passed away for tens of thousands of years. Why are there still so many people who want to find the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb? Yiqing Luo's eyes were deep. If the people in the heaven realm were interested in this, it could be explained by the fact that there were countless treasures buried with the Divine Emperor in the tomb of the Divine Emperor. But why would the person behind the Nether Palace be interested in the Divine Emperor's tomb? Based on the strength of the person behind the Nether Palace. To be able to stir up a bloodbath in all the major realms and still remain unscathed, that was enough to show that person's strength. Why did they have to scheme against her? They wanted the Divine Phoenix profound heart jade in her body and wanted to know the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb? Alright, you don't need to think too much about these things. The barbaric Blood King interrupted Yiqing Luo's deep thoughts. The most important thing for you now is to heal your injuries, lest they spread and turn you into a puppet. Yiqing Luo gathered her thoughts and was stunned when she heard the barbaric Blood King's words. My injuries? What happened? What do you mean by turning me into a puppet? I don't know what the Dark Palace did to the weapon that injured you, but they followed the weapon and entered your body, trying to take control of your body. The Bloodbone barbaric King's gaze fell on her bandaged shoulder. This thing is similar to a goo worm, but it is not a living goo. No wonder, even now she would convulse in pain whenever she moved. Tampering, take control of her body. Damn it, it sounded like the style of the Dark Palace. That kind of rat hiding in the dark only knew how to play this kind of trick. She thought of the expressionless Long Yunjian stabbing the sword into her shoulder. Yiqing Luo felt a dull pain in her heart. She really couldn't tell if Long Yunjian had done such a thing because he was being controlled by the Dark Palace, or was it because that was what he wanted? Because it was on Long Yunjian. She did not sense any aura of the Dark Nether Palace. His emotionless eyes did not have the dullness and lifelessness of being controlled by the Palace of Darkness. She even saw Long Yunjian's thin lips curling up slightly. She clenched her fingers. Then my injury, can it be healed? I don't know. The barbaric Blood King was very honest. This god can only temporarily suppress that evil chi and the speed of its growth. As for the real solution, I'm not sure yet. Yiqing Luo? Could it be that she could only choose to wait for death? This god is unable to bring you to seek a doctor, so we can only slowly explore. The barbaric Blood King said. 11. Chapter 4582. Now everyone in the upper realm had treated Yi Qing Luo as a piece of delicious meat. If they knew her whereabouts, wouldn't they flatten this thatched cottage? Her injury. How was she going to recover? Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly and asked again, "How long have I slept here?" "Not long, 2 days. Blood-boned barbaric king replied, "Such a serious injury, you're considered to have woken up early." Yi Qing Luo's face turned slightly pale. "Then, after you saved me, did you return to look for my brothers?" Blood-boned barbaric king shook his head. "No, when I brought you away, that place was already on the verge of collapsing. If we were any later, we would have been swallowed by the whirlpool inside." Yi Qing Luo abruptly sat up from the bed. The sharp pain in her shoulder made her face scrunch up tightly because of the pain. She gritted her teeth to bear with the pain and got down from the bed. They won't be swallowed. I want to go back." "Don't be rash." Blood-boned barbaric king stretched out his hand to stop her from moving. The wound on her shoulder and the sharp pain of something cutting her flesh made Yi Qing Luo unable to avoid blood-boned barbaric king's obstruction. Blood-boned barbaric king pressed her back onto the bed as his face turned slightly cold. "Even if you go like this, what can you do? Will they be safe and sound?" Yi Qing Luo bit her lips tightly as her face turned slightly pale. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to be filled with ice. Blood-boned barbaric king remained unmoved as he continued to reason with her. "Do you know the situation you're in now? Based on your understanding of the secluded palace, don't tell me you can't guess. Based on their understanding of you, they know that you care about your brothers. Once you return to that place, what awaits you is an inescapable trap. Based on your current state, do you think you can still turn danger into safety?" Blood-boned barbaric king's handsome face became more and more solemn. The 5 fingers which were pressing on Yi Qing Luo's arm tightened. "Qing Luo, you're not so lucky every time. Feng Gu was willing to use his entire life's energy in exchange for a lifetime of peace for you to survive, not for you to squander it like this." When mentioning Feng Gu, blood-boned barbaric king's face seemed to be struggling slightly, as though he was restraining his own pain. "If I can save him, I will. Do you understand?" The man's hoarse voice trembled slightly. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. His grip on her arm was very heavy, but it wasn't particularly painful. She could feel his emotions from his trembling fingertips. Yi Qing Luo's eyes gradually sunk. There wasn't much light in her eyes. It was very bleak. Her whole body also weakly collapsed on the bed. The barbaric blood-bone king seemed to have suddenly regained his senses as he hurriedly let go of her arms and straightened his body. "I just don't want you to do anything wrong. Your life was exchanged with Feng Ji's life." Yi Qing Luo lay on the bed in a daze. His eyes were wide open. He just stared at the thatched roof. The blood-boned barbarian king opened his mouth, wanting to say something. But when he was about to say it, he pursed his lips. He did not speak again. He sat quietly on the edge of the bed. He knew that based on Yi Qing Luo's character, she would definitely not be able to accept this fact in a short period of time. But it had already happened. No matter how hard she tried, there was no way to change the truth. What's more, her current injury still had no way to resolve it. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo's slightly hoarse voice spoke faintly. Don't you hate my mother?" Blood-boned barbaric king had suffered so much pain and had fallen to such a state. It was all because of that Feng Gu, wasn't it? Chapter 4583. He still remembered the first time he met the blood-boned barbaric king. Dmo Xian exposed his identity. When he mentioned Feng Gu, his mouth was calling her a slut. But now, there was a change in his attitude. Blood-boned barbaric king's body stiffened slightly as he lowered his eyelids and pursed his lips. "No. Is it because you've finally come to your senses and know that you've misunderstood her?" Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc. Blood-boned barbaric king was stunned. You know about it? I've seen your memories, what else do I not know?" Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways at him, her eyes filled with ridicule. Blood-boned barbaric king didn't reply. Yes, it was until later when Yi Qing Luo opened his memories. The memory that had been sealed for 10,000 years resurfaced in his mind. He then knew how stupid he was back then. He should have believed Feng Gu. Since he loved Feng Gu so deeply, why would he suspect her in the end? That Feng Gu who said she knew that he had cultivated the forbidden technique to protect her and pretended not to know, was not Feng Gu at all. The real Feng Gu. How could she possibly do that to him? That Feng Gu who tried to snatch the child and tried to kill him. Not Feng Gu at all. The real Feng Gu loved her child so deeply that She could even sacrifice herself, so how could she possibly say that it was the child's divine phoenix profound heart jade? And how would she know that the child was in his arms? And even dealt a vicious hand to him, totally disregarding the child's safety? He was really stupid. So stupid that he only realized now that something was wrong. That Fenggu was a fake Fenggu. The motive was to get Fengji's child, which was Yiqing Luo. Because my life was exchanged with my mother's life, so that's why you tried your best to keep me alive, right? Yiqing Luo's gaze returned to the thatched roof. Bloodbone Barbaric King responded with a soft, "N." He immediately reacted to Yiqing Luo's words. Are you trying to tell me that I want you to live, and you want your group of brothers to live is the same? Yiqing Luo struggled to raise her hand. On his finger, the totem of a phoenix spreading its wings faintly flowed. Xian must be looking for me. Bring me along and follow the profound phoenix ring's senses to look for him. Yiqing Luo said word by word. In her current state, it was indeed not suitable to fight head-on with the palace of gloomy darkness. With Xian by her side, only then could she feel at ease. The barbaric Bloodbone King looked at the profound phoenix ring and then at Yiqing Luo. After a long time he finally said, "All right." Under Yiqing Luo's urging, Barbaric Blood King carried the person up and placed him into Chi-Chi's soft fur. While he was moving, the wound on his shoulder affected his entire body, causing him to feel a tearing pain. She held it in and leaned against Chi-Chi's back. At this moment, the Barbaric Bloodbone King's expression froze. He looked at a spot in the dense forest in front of him with a cold expression. Who's there? When Yiqing Luo heard that, her heart skipped a beat. He tilted his head slightly and looked in the direction of the Bloodbone Barbaric King. Barbaric Bloodbone King stood in front of Yiqing Luo with a vigilant expression. Very quickly, a figure slowly walked out from that spot. That person was dressed in a green robe, his hair was combed neatly, and his entire body was filled with an elegant and refined temperament. Especially that pair of eyes which looked towards Yiqing Luo, was like glass, dazzling and dazzling. He stood there with a gentle expression. His lips curled into a smile. Like a spring breeze. As if it was emitted from his bones. The fastest update speed. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 4584. When Yiqing Luo saw that person, the expression on his face froze and his face turned cold. What are you doing here? I was worried about you. The man's eyes gazed at Yiqing Luo in a daze, as there seemed to be some kind of tender and affectionate emotions rippling beneath his eyes. Towards his words, Yiqing Luo didn't have any reaction at all. Instead she frowned. How did you know I was here? I know it was Bone Lord who saved you. That man's gaze shot towards Bloodbone Barbaric King and shifted onto Yiqing Luo. I knew he would hide you here, so I'm here. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as a cold glint flashed beneath her eyes, not showing much emotion. When the Barbaric Bloodbone King saw that person, his face was full of astonishment. How do you know about this place? Sorry. The man pursed his thin lips and apologized in a low voice. Master had asked me to follow you before. I realized that whenever you're in a bad mood, you'll come here alone. The Barbaric Bloodbone King's face darkened. From the beginning, that person from the Palace of Darkness has been on guard against me. He didn't even notice that he was being followed. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly as her brows were filled with faint ridicule. Gu Jingyu, you're indeed a loyal dog. That dark rat asked you to follow him, so you followed him. The man in front of him, wasn't he the Nirvana realm, the young sect master of the Valley of Wind, the palace master of the Dark Palace? Gu Jingyu? Gu Jingyu appeared here. This also meant that the Palace of Darkness already knew of her whereabouts. Hearing Yiqing Luo's ridicule, Gu Jingyu's brows creased slightly. He gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo's face. His eyes seemed to be filled with the most sincere emotions in the world. Yiqing Luo, this time I'm specially here for you. Gu Jingyu said warmly, his gentle and elegant smile seemed to be immersed in the warm sun. Yiqing Luo sneered, does your master want to teach you what it means to take advantage of my illness to take my life? Master didn't ask me to come. Gu Jingyu hurriedly explained, Master doesn't know I'm here. Yiqing Luo only sneered and didn't even have the desire to reply. Obviously he didn't believe it. As for Gu Jingyu, she did not trust him at all. I'm telling the truth. Gu Jingyu pursed his lips, his face full of hurt. Master, he is in closed-door training. Now I'm in charge of the Anyo Palace. I've confirmed that Master is really in closed-door training. That's why I'm here to find you. Yiqing Luo's half-closed eyes suddenly opened. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Gu Jingyu suspiciously. Seclusion? Why are you in seclusion? The person behind the scenes of Abyss Palace? Why would he go into seclusion at this time? This. Gu Jingyu hesitated. For him. After all, his master was his master. He was also one of master's men. He liked Yiqing Luo, but that didn't mean that he could betray his master calmly. He licked his lips a few times, lowered his eyes and said, I can't say, but I can assure you what I said is all true. What guarantee do you have? Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixed on Gu Jingyu's face, watching his every change of mood. Gu Jingyu was stumped by the question as his mouth opened, and after moving for some time, he muttered, What do you want me to use to guarantee? Anyo Palace. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. I want you to use Anyo Palace as a guarantee. Gu Jingyu's expression changed slightly as a sliver of helplessness flashed past his gentle eyes. This Anyo Palace isn't mine. I'm unable to use Anyo Palace as a guarantee. You said it yourself, your master has already gone into closed-door training. Yiqing Luo gave a teasing smile. Remember, this god stands on website, to prevent from losing. Chapter 4585. Gu Jingyu's expression sunk slightly and the gaze he shot at Yiqing Luo turned deep and complicated. Yiqing Luo, you can use my life as a guarantee, but I can't use my master's painstaking effort as a guarantee. Speaking in such a righteous manner, then why are you standing here? Yiqing Luo laughed lightly and the emotions in her eyes were cold. Gu Jingyu, if you're really that loyal to your master, then you shouldn't appear in front of me. I can't help it. I can't control myself. Gu Jingyu's gentle brows faintly revealed a trace of viciousness. As though he was forced to face this problem by Yiqing Luo's words. He wanted to get close to Yiqing Luo. But he was warned by Chi-Chi's low growl, stopping his footsteps. He stood on the original spot, staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Suddenly, he hugged his head and squatted down in pain. I don't want to appear. But I can't control myself, Yiqing Luo. You don't understand. What kind of feelings do I use to treat you? I originally wanted to be a stranger to you, you're right. We're destined to be enemies. We're destined to be enemies. I also want to be as cold and heartless as you treat me. But I can't do it. I can't do it. The minute I heard that you're injured and heard that you're here, Master specially concocted the profound fragrance for you. I couldn't control myself. I want to see you. Want to see you safe and sound. The man's voice was hoarse, filled with despair. It wasn't a confession of love so deep that it was pink, but a confession of despair which made one at a loss and helpless. Listening to Gu Jingyu's hoarse and despairing accusations, the air was filled with silence for several breaths. After some time, Yiqing Luo's curly long and thick lashes moved slightly. Her pink lips pursed before she slowly opened her mouth. Gu Jingyu. Her 3 words made the man's heart instantly lifted up, as though he was waiting to be sentenced to death. That kind of anxiety but also despair. I'm very grateful for your feelings towards me. Yiqing Luo knew Gu Jingyu's feelings towards her, but she didn't expect it to be so deep. She closed her eyes. You know very well that I won't like you. Don't waste the time and opportunities that you should have on me. It's hard to have the best of both worlds. Since you've chosen to stand on your master's side, you should control your feelings. On one hand, you help your master and do things that hurt me, but on the other hand, you sincerely express your feelings to me. I really don't know how to view your feelings. Gu Jingyu clenched his fists. How would he not know what Yiqing Luo said? But so what if he knew? He knew it better than anyone else. You shouldn't try to have it both ways. At the same time he was fulfilling his feelings. At the same time he fulfilled his loyalty. But, secluded palace and Yiqing Luo. How could they possibly exist in peace? If possible. He really didn't wish that he would have such deep feelings towards Yiqing Luo. You can leave. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath. I believe what you're saying now, but I don't need your help. From start to finish. She was observing Gu Jingyu's expression. From Gu Jingyu's subtle expressions and reactions, she trusted Gu Jingyu. The person behind the scenes in Nether Palace should have really gone into closed-door cultivation. Of course, there was a possibility that the person behind the scenes in Nether Palace had also cheated Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's expression changed slightly, as though he hadn't expected Yiqing Luo to chase him away. I can save you. What you have on you is the profound fragrance, and if you don't expel it from your body in time, you will become Master's puppet. Dear, this chapter has ended. I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Chapter 4586. I got it. Yi Qing Luo's expression was still indifferent as there wasn't any change in her emotions. But, I don't need you to save me. Gu Jingyu's body stiffened as he stood there in a daze. His eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking as his chest seemed to be churning with raging waves. As though she hadn't noticed the change in the man's emotions, Yi Qing Luo continued to speak coldly. You hate me that much? So hateful that you don't even want me to save you? Gu Jingyu's voice was trembling slightly. If one looked closely, one could tell that his body was trembling. Yi Qing Luo didn't look at him as she replied indifferently, I just don't need it. Not hateful. Just don't need it. Gu Jingyu's expression faded as his fingers clenched into a fist. He raised his head as he clenched his fists tightly. The warmth in his eyes was no longer there. What replaced it was a patch of darkness. His body stiffened as step by step, he slowly turned around and walked towards the dense forest which he came from. His footsteps were shaky as he walked step by step, as though it was extremely strenuous. As though he was stepping on a sharp blade. Slowly he entered the dense forest, disappearing in front of the two of them. Yi Qing Luo didn't even glance towards Gu Jingyu's direction as she said indifferently, Let's go. Her fingertips gently stroked the profound phoenix ring. Blood-bone barbaric king who had been silent looked at the direction where the man left and retracted his gaze. He can save you, why did you reject him? Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes and didn't say a word. Blood-bone barbaric king frowned, the injury on your body, even this god can't do anything about it. The longer this drags on, the more damage it will cause to you. This god can tell that although the palace lord of secluded palace is on the opposite side of you, but his feelings towards you are extremely sincere. He said he can save you so it shouldn't be a lie. I know. Yi Qing Luo's voice was very indifferent. I know he didn't lie and I know he sincerely wants to save me. Then why don't you let him save you? Do you know that if this drags on, your body will be completely controlled by that mysterious strange energy and then it will start to control you. At that time if I don't kill you, then your beloved man will kill you. Only then will he be able to stop you from doing anything wrong. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly as she slowly opened her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes overflowed with a faint light. Very dark, very deep. It's precisely because I know that I can't let him save me. We are destined to be enemies. The more he cares about me, the more he'll push himself to the point of no return. The person behind the scenes of Gloomy Palace is not a good person. Tolerating him time and time again, there will come a time when he explodes. Also, I don't want to owe him anything anymore. So, I don't need him to save me. The young girl's cold voice was like a bone-piercing chill. Bit by bit, it tainted the surrounding air. It was as if everything in the surroundings had been frozen by frost. The blood-bone barbarian king's eyes flickered as he sneered, You're quite considerate of him. It's not for his sake. Yi Qing Luo's tone was calm, I just don't want to get involved with other relationships. The blood-bone barbarian king only smiled. Then he patted his sleeves, Since you've already decided, I'll follow your wishes. Now, let's go. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes again. There was a long silence. She still didn't sense that Chi didn't move. Nor did she hear the blood-bone barbarian king's footsteps. End of this chapter. Chapter 4587. Yi Qing Luo called out to blood-bone barbaric king in puzzlement. But there was no response. She frowned and opened her eyes again. Blood-bone barbaric king stood by her side, looking straight ahead without blinking. He probably sensed that Yi Qing Luo had opened her eyes. He indicated for Yi Qing Luo to look ahead. Yi Qing Luo looked over. She saw a figure standing in front of Chi. Chi bared its teeth but it wasn't too fierce. Yi Qing Luo stared at that person and frowned slightly. Why are you back again? The person in front of her was Gu Jingyu who had left earlier. Gu Jingyu didn't say a word as his gentle glass-like eyes gazed deeply at Yi Qing Luo. The expression on his face was as gentle as jade. His thin lips curled up slightly, containing a gentle smile. As though he didn't care about Yi Qing Luo's attitude. Yi Qing Luo felt uncomfortable being stared at and the expression on her face was impatient. Gu Jingyu, I've said this before, I don't need your help, please leave. Gu Jingyu slowly walked towards her. Chi bared its teeth and wanted to stop him. But it thought that this man was the only one who could save its master. Selfishly it didn't want to stop him. While it was in a dilemma, Gu Jingyu was already standing next to Yi Qing Luo. Blood-bone barbaric king's eyes locked onto him. In case he suddenly made a move. Yiqing Luo laid on Chi-Chi's back, facing Gu Jingyu. What is your motive? Gu Jingyu's lips curled. I want to save you. I said I don't need it. Yiqing Luo rejected without hesitation. Gu Jingyu lowered his eyelids, his thick eyelashes covered the emotions in his eyes. He said word by word, I heard everything you said just now. Yiqing Luo was stunned. He was referring to what she and Blood-Bone Barbaric King had said earlier? So what if he heard it? She wasn't willing to let him save her. She wasn't willing. But I want to save you. Gu Jingyu's deep voice revealed a trace of hoarseness. Yiqing Luo, I saved you not because I want you to owe me anything. He closed his eyes. Let's make a deal. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened. I refuse. This time I will save you. Gu Jingyu ignored her refusal. After saving you from now on, when we meet again we will be strangers. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her expression froze for a moment. She looked at Gu Jingyu in confusion. What do you mean? You are right. We are destined to be enemies. It is also time for me to let you go. Gu Jingyu was still smiling warmly. But that smile, his tone was filled with bitterness. He endured the pain and continued, my deal is, you agree to let me save you and we'll settle this. To save her. Come to settle things? What kind of brain circuit was this? Yiqing Luo expressed that she didn't quite understand. Gu Jingyu pursed his lips tightly as he paused every word, as though he was declaring his determination for Yiqing Luo to hear, and also for himself to hear, after saving you. The next time we meet, I will not feel any pity for you. So, after I save you the next time we meet, don't believe anything I say. Everything I do will be based on my master's standpoint. Between you and me there will be no more friendship. When Yiqing Luo heard what he said, she somehow felt that something was amiss. As though he was saying his last words. Her slender brows creased even tighter. Gu Jingyu, I said this before, I don't need you to save me. Don't need me to save you means? You don't want to sever all ties with me, right? Gu Jingyu's eyes shone. Chapter 4588. Happy New Year, automatically refresh at 6 in the morning. Pei Xing slowly lowered his head, his face filled with pain and confusion. Seeing that he did not reply, Yiqing Luo curled her lips into a smile. However, there was a hint of mockery in his laughter. Why don't I give you an idea? Although he felt that Yiqing Luo's laughter was a little strange, there was also an inexplicable pain in his heart. But hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Pei Xing swiftly raised his head and looked at Yiqing Luo. The moment he raised his head, he met with Yiqing Luo's smiling yet not smiling eyes. That pair of eyes that were as deep as the abyss were very black. It was the kind of extreme darkness. Her eyes were obviously seductive and seductive. However, it made people tremble with respect and fear. Why don't you just throw away the mess that is treasure gathering and just walk away from it? Anyway, you're going to the heaven realm, so it doesn't matter what happens here, right? These people came here because you're a branch family member of the Huangfu clan. Even if you leave with the Huangfu clan and leave this mess behind, I'm sure they won't blame you. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she propped up her chin as she looked at him with her curved eyes. There was a smile on his face. However, Pei Xing could sense the coldness in that smile. The two customers who were registering at the side, can't you be more considerate of them? They were still there. Was it really a good idea to reveal the purpose of their visit like there was no one else around? No. No way. He almost blurted it out. Pei Xing widened his eyes and shook his head forcefully. Absolutely not. The Treasures Exchange Hall was his father's blood, sweat and tears. 5 years ago, because of the framing of Zhongqing trading firm, his father had ruined the reputation of Ju Bao. Now, treasure gathering has finally returned to everyone's line of sight. I absolutely cannot let treasure gathering's reputation be tarnished. Leave the mess behind and walk away. How could he do it? Yiqing Luo smiled. This time there was a different gentleness to her smile. She was still holding her chin. He was in the same position as before. It was just that the aura emitted from his body was slightly restrained. Since you feel that this method is not feasible, then, what are you going to do? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile. Pei Xing fell silent again. Yiqing Luo didn't urge him to reply at all. A moment later, in this strange atmosphere, Pei Xing moved his mouth and softly spat out a few words. I will stay in the land. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and continued to smile. No regrets? Pei Xing wanted to say that he didn't regret it. But when the words reached his mouth, it was as if something was stuck in his throat, and he couldn't spit them out no matter what. Don't you regret it? He didn't know. He really didn't know. Yiqing Luo laughed out loud at this moment. The hand she used to support her chin had already changed to the back of her hand to support her temples, looking very lazy. You don't answer, but you already have the answer in your heart, don't you? Yiqing Luo's straightforwardness made Pei Xing's face turn slightly pale. He clenched his fists tightly, opening and closing them again. Yiqing Luo brushed a strand of hair which was hanging by the side of her ear as she laughed softly. Since you already have a decision in your heart, then you should be clear on what you want to do next. Chapter 4589. The wound on the young lady's shoulder had started to fester. A patch of black festering skin formed a sharp contrast with the fair skin beside. The most horrifying thing was, it was the festering wound. Strips of thread-like, worm-like things meandered around, twisting and twisting. Constantly twisting around that large patch of wound. It was extremely ghastly. Every time that thing twisted and twisted, it would twist and twist. It made the young lady suck in a breath of cold air. Her body was trembling. Bloodbone Barbaric King took a look at Yiqing Luo and then looked at Gu Jingyu. Following that, his arm moved. A gravitational force landed on Yiqing Luo's neck. You. Gu Jingyu's pupils contracted as he subconsciously stretched out his hand to block it. Bloodbone Barbaric King was sure that Yiqing Luo had really fainted before he spoke calmly. She's an alchemist, medication won't have any effect on her. Gu Jingyu swallowed back the words he was about to say. It wasn't hard to see the worry in his eyes towards Yiqing Luo. Bloodbone Barbaric King didn't beat around the bush. Can you really save her? I can. Gu Jingyu nodded his head confidently. But if one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the slight tremble in his voice. Her wound has already worsened. We must act as soon as possible to expel the profound fragrance. Bloodbone Barbaric King pursed his thin lips slightly as he stared at Gu Jingyu quietly. On what basis do I believe you? Her injury can't wait any longer. Gu Jingyu revealed an anxious look. Generally speaking, after the profound fragrance enters the body, it needs at least 7 days of incubation before it starts to act. In the initial stage, the profound fragrance will spread to the injured person's internal organs, injecting the active profound fragrance. In the final stage, the wound will start to fester, and this is the final stage of the profound fragrance. In the final stage, the injured person will be controlled by the profound fragrance, and will lose all self-consciousness. Gu Jingyu pointed at the silk thread thing on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. This is the profound fragrance. Bloodbone Barbaric King's face sunk slightly. It's only been 2 days, why has the profound fragrance reached the final stage? I'm not too sure about this. Bloodbone Barbaric King shook his head. Now we have to hurry. Once it reaches the final stage, even I can't do anything. The Barbaric Bloodbone King fell silent. Towards Gu Jingyu's feelings towards Yiqing Luo. As an experienced person he could see it very clearly. However, who could be sure that his method would work? Gu Jingyu glanced at the Barbaric Bloodbone King. Without waiting for the Barbaric Bloodbone King's reply, he stood up and sat on the side of the bed. 2 hands had already pressed onto Yiqing Luo's shoulders, the 2 sides of her clothes which had been cut open. The Barbaric Bloodbone King wanted to stop him. However, the hand that was stretched out in midair paused. In the end he took it back. While Yiqing Luo was in a daze, she only felt that the wound on her shoulder was sometimes burning with pain, and sometimes it felt like she was being irrigated by ice. It was itchy and painful. That kind of piercing itch seemed to come from the bones. She wanted to scratch it, but she couldn't feel the exact spot. His whole body was itching uncomfortably. Waves of bone-piercing pain came from the wound again. Yiqing Luo couldn't bear it any longer as she cried out. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw the gentle and graceful young master beside her bed. However, the man's complexion was pale and his brows were filled with fatigue. There wasn't any color of blood on his thin lips. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as her breathing stagnated. She wanted to open her mouth, but her voice was hoarse and stinging, so she couldn't say anything. Dear, this chapter has ended. I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Chapter 4590. The man revealed a smile on his face when he saw her opening her eyes. He half squatted down and got close to Yiqing Luo's pupils. The tiredness on his face was dispelled by the smile. Yiqing Luo, you're awake. When he opened his mouth, his voice was slightly hoarse. His tone was filled with unconcealable joy. His hand was placed gently on Yiqing Luo's shoulder as he asked warmly, "Your wound, is it still painful?" The man in front of her was Gu Jingyu. Yiqing Luo wanted to speak, but her throat was dry and she couldn't make any sound. Gu Jingyu smiled, "You're now in the process of expelling the profound Yin fragrance and it might make you lose your voice for a period of time. After the profound Yin fragrance is expelled, you'll be able to speak again." Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly as she nodded, indicating that she understood. The smile on Gu Jingyu's face deepened as he asked again, "Is the wound still painful? You have to tell me at all times how you feel now." Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips and didn't reply him. Instead she raised her eyes and met his eyes. The look in her eyes was very cold. No words. Gu Jingyu could tell what she was trying to express. "I said before, I don't need you to save me." The expression on his face only dimmed for a moment and very quickly he raised his smile. "Then just treat it as I'm forcing you. You don't need to have any psychological burden." Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk even deeper. Gu Jingyu looked at her deeply as he smiled. "I know you won't have any psychological burden. It's just that I simply wanted to save you. Now that I've already saved you, no matter how angry you are, you can't change the truth so you can only accept it." Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk as she looked at him for some time before shifting her gaze away, too lazy to look at him. Gu Jingyu sat by the bedside as his face was filled with a warm smile. "In less than 3 days, the profound Yin fragrance in your body will be completely expelled and it won't affect your body at all." Yiqing Luo still didn't look at him. Gu Jingyu didn't mind. He just sat by her side as he rambled on. He could keep on talking. He didn't care if Yiqing Luo gave him a response. As long as Yiqing Luo was by his side, he would feel extremely satisfied. Until Gu Jingyu spoke alone for about an hour. Yiqing Luo then moved slightly. Her line of sight looked around. However, it didn't land on Gu Jingyu. "Bone King is trying to find out the news of Venerable Sovereign, and he's trying to find out if your brothers are still alive," Gu Jingyu answered, seeing that she was looking for someone. Hearing his words, Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixed in front for some time. Only then did she slowly shift her gaze back to his face. The girl's eyelashes fluttered gently like butterfly wings. His eyes seemed to be flowing with rippling brilliance. Gu Jingyu's eyes were filled with the young girl's beautiful face. Even if the girl didn't put on any makeup and looked sick. However, it still seemed to be able to drill into the depths of his heart. This time, Gu Jingyu was the first to look away. He shifted his gaze away and looked unnaturally towards the front as he pursed his lips and asked, "Yiqing Luo, the words that I said earlier are all serious. After today, you and I have nothing to do with each other. If we meet again, I hope you can forget what happened today. How you treated me in the past, treat me the way you treated me in the future." Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly. Not knowing why, she felt that his words had some deep meaning. But she couldn't tell what he was trying to express. "Dear, this chapter has ended. I wish you a happy reading." Big smiley face. Chapter 4591. Perhaps he sensed the young lady's puzzled gaze. He suddenly regained his senses, and when he turned his head to look at Yiqing Luo, his lips revealed his signature warm smile. "I am thinking to really let go of you. If your gaze lingers on me for just a moment more, I will feel that I still have a chance." He smiled. His smile turned bitter. "If in future you don't wish to be pestered by someone like me, then just be as heartless as now. Don't give me any hope." Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. She opened her mouth wanting to say something. But Gu Jingyu's hand was pressed against her lips. "Don't speak, it will affect your body." He spoke in a gentle voice. Yiqing Luo nodded. Gu Jingyu looked at her quietly for a moment. The hand which was pressed against his lips took some time before he slowly retracted it. When his fingers were placed back on his knees, his eyes dimmed by quite a bit. The next 2 days, it had always been Gu Jingyu by her side taking care of her. Yiqing Luo's wound, which was itchy and painful from time to time, was only left with itchiness. In the end, she couldn't feel any sensation from her wound. Her throat slowly started to emit a slight airflow sound. She could also get off the bed and take 2 steps. Savage Blood Bone King would return roughly 2 to 3 times a day. Every time he took a look at Yiqing Luo's condition, he would leave in a hurry. Every time she saw Savage Blood Bone King, Yiqing Luo would use a hopeful gaze to look over. But Savage Blood Bone King had never given her an answer. No answer meant that there was no result. Yiqing Luo was feeling apprehensive, but she also understood. Right now, no result was the best result. At least, there was no evidence to prove that her brothers had all died in that stretch of mountain range. Thinking about those people in the world group again? Gu Jingyu carried a bowl of black medicinal liquid as he walked to the wooden chair beside Yiqing Luo's bed. As he sat down, Yiqing Luo received the medicine. The pungent medicinal liquid was extremely unpleasant. Even Yiqing Luo couldn't smell out what was the composition of this medicinal liquid. She drank the medicinal liquid expressionlessly. Gu Jingyu took the empty medicine bowl, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This is the last bowl of medicine. The rest depends on your physique. Maybe the Shenin fragrance will be exhausted, or maybe it will be tomorrow. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as she looked at the man in front of her, that extremely warm smile on his face. Her pink lips moved slightly. Thank you. The sound of air drifted over so lightly that it was almost inaudible. Gu Jingyu's movements paused and his smile grew warmer. This is something I am willing to do. There is no need for you to thank me. Yiqing Luo's eyelids drooped as she turned sideways and leaned against the headboard. The wound on her shoulder was still there. But now the wound had recovered its pink and tender color, and was no longer festering black. Gu Jingyu washed the dishes and put them away. He returned to Yiqing Luo's bedside. He sat down and chuckled. After today we will no longer be strangers. He was smiling. There was a hint of amusement in his tone, but in the ears of the people. But it was so bitter. I really miss these 3 days. Gu Jingyu laughed lightly again as a warm glint flowed between his eyes, as though a warm current flowed into her heart. And thank you for letting me have these 3 days of dreams. Yiqing Luo's drooping eyelids finally had some changes. She raised her head and looked at Gu Jingyu as her slender brows creased. You're leaving? His words seemed like his final farewell. With the young lady's gaze, Gu Jingyu's lips turned even more radiant. That's right. I said before, I only wanted to save you. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.